Hey guys, tonight we're going into one of the darkest, most exhausting battles of the Second World War. A place where mud, rain, and fear clung to every soldier, and where survival meant something very different than what you know today. We're going to explore what it was really like for the men who landed on Okinawa. It wasn't a clean story of strategy and victory. It was weeks of horror, exhaustion, and the kind of violence that never left them, even when they made it home. Before we begin, take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Adjust your blanket, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that quiet hum in the background. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to see how many people around the world are sharing this moment together. Now, close your eyes, take a breath, and imagine you're not in your room anymore. You've been transported to the spring of 1945. The war in Europe is nearly over, but the war in the Pacific is still raging with no clear end in sight. You're young. Maybe 19, maybe 22, and you've been shipped across the ocean to fight on an island you'd never heard of before. The name doesn't mean much now, but in a few months it will be burned into you forever. This is Okinawa, the place where men who thought they had seen everything in battle quickly learned that things could always get worse. The air smells of salt and diesel fuel. Your uniform sticks to your body, damp from sweat and sea spray, and every inch of the ship feels cramped. Around you, hundreds of other men are waiting, silent, or whispering nervously, trying to distract themselves from what they know is coming. Some smoke, some write letters, some stare into nothing, rehearsing the moment when the ramp drops and the world erupts. The ocean outside is deceptively calm, but everyone knows it won't stay that way. Because once you step off this deck, the island will show you why the Battle of Okinawa became one of the most brutal, unrelenting nightmares of the war. You open your eyes to the sound of boots and metal, a rhythm that never seems to stop on this ship. Steel floors echo every step, every shift of weight, every cough, every shuffle of cards being slapped down somewhere below. It's the morning of April 1st, 1945, and your world is the belly of a transport ship crammed with more bodies than you ever thought could fit in one place. The ceiling is low enough that tall guys duck every time they stand. The bunks are stacked 3, sometimes 4 high, made from metal frames and sagging canvas, barely wide enough to turn over. You've been living in this space for weeks, sharing the stale air with hundreds of others. The smell is a cocktail of sweat, cigarettes, oil, mildew, and the faint sour trace of vomit that never quite disappears, no matter how much the crew tries to hose things down. You're 19 years old, maybe 21, and this is your first time in combat. Or maybe you've already fought at Peleliu or Saipan and carry the weight of knowing exactly what comes next. Either way, your stomach feels the same, a knot that doesn't loosen no matter how many deep breaths you take. Around you, men stir awake. Some groan quietly, some sit up in silence, their eyes blank but heavy with the knowledge that today isn't just another day. There's no calendar here, no sunlight breaking through a bedroom window, no alarm clock ringing on a nightstand, just the constant hum of engines, the swaying of the ocean, and the faint metallic groan of the ship as it cuts through the waves. You swing your legs over the side of the bunk and land on the cold steel floor. It's slick in places, damp with condensation, and your bare feet hesitate before you slip them into your boots. They're stiff, worn from training, and still smell faintly of mould no matter how often you try to air them out. You lace them tight because you know once the order comes, you won't have time to stop and fix anything. You reach for your helmet, dented already from drills, chipped at the edge where it hit the floor last week. You hold it in your lap for a moment, staring at the dull green paint, and for some reason it feels heavier than usual. The mess line is already forming. Men shuffle toward the galley in loose order, their faces grey with fatigue. Breakfast is powdered eggs, canned sausage, and coffee so bitter it tastes more like punishment than comfort. You force it down anyway, because you don't know when you'll get to eat again. The metal tray rattles in your hands as the ship rocks, and the smell of grease lingers on your fingers long after you finish. Around you, the conversation is thin. A few jokes are muttered, nervous laughter breaking through before fading just as quickly. Most just eat in silence, eyes locked on the table, pretending not to notice the way their hands shake slightly when they lift their cups. On the upper deck, the sky is just beginning to lighten. The horizon is a pale grey blue, broken by the shapes of hundreds of ships. Carriers, destroyers, landing craft. An entire floating city of steel stretched across the sea. The sight should be reassuring, but instead it presses on you with a strange heaviness. So many ships, so many men, all pointed toward one tiny island you'd never heard of until a few weeks ago. Okinawa. Just a name on a briefing map until now, but today it feels like the whole world is leaning toward it. The air is thick with exhaust fumes and salt spray, and the ocean smells sharper here, mingling with the oil slicks trailing in the water. You lean against the rail and light a cigarette. The smoke fills your lungs, and for a moment it steadies you. All around, men are doing the same, their faces lit in brief orange glows before fading back into the dim morning. Some write last-minute letters, folding them carefully as if paper and pencil could shield them from what's coming. Others simply stare at the horizon, their expressions unreadable, their thoughts locked somewhere far away. One man near you whispers a prayer under his breath, fingers worrying at the small cross around his neck. Another flips a coin over and over in his hand, the metallic clink catching your ear with each turn. Everyone has their ritual. Announcements crackle over the loudspeaker, garbled at first, then sharp enough that everyone stops to listen. The invasion is only hours away. Final preparations are underway. Landing craft are being lowered into the water. The voice is calm, matter of fact, as if it's just another drill. But you feel your stomach drop as the reality sets in. The drills are over. This is it. The landing they've been talking about for weeks. The operation that's supposed to bring the war closer to its end. The largest amphibious assault in the Pacific. And you are one of the thousands who will hit that beach first. Back below deck, you check your gear again for the 10th time. Rifle, ammo, grenades, canteen, pack. Everything feels too heavy, pressing against your shoulders, biting into your back. The straps dig into your skin as you shift, but you don't loosen them. You can't risk losing anything. The rifle feels both familiar and foreign in your hands. You've trained with it 100 times. Field stripped it in the dark. Fired it until your shoulder bruised. But now, as you cradle it in the dim light of the hold, it feels less like a tool and more like a lifeline you're not sure you can hold on to. The chaplain makes his rounds, offering quiet words, short prayers, or just a nod to those who want nothing spoken. A few men kneel with him, heads bowed, their voices a low murmur drowned out by the thrum of engines. Others turn away, not out of disrespect, but because they can't face the weight of it. You catch yourself staring at your boots again, the scuffed leather, the dried salt stains. You wonder if these are the last things you'll see in one piece. As the sun climbs higher, the atmosphere shifts. The stillness of the morning gives way to movement. Officers bark orders, and men shuffle into their assigned groups. The corridors are clogged with bodies, packs, weapons. The smell of sweat intensifies, mixed with the faint tang of fear that seems to hang in the air like smoke. You move with the current, pressed shoulder to shoulder, every step deliberate and slow. The ship vibrates as the landing craft clang against its sides, lowered one after another into the water. The sound is deafening, echoing through the steel hull like a drumbeat. Your heart races, pounding in time with the metallic thuds. You can hear men breathing heavily around you, some muttering to themselves, others silent, locked in their own thoughts. The ramp is just ahead now, and beyond it, the waiting sea. You catch a glimpse of the horizon again, Okinawa faint in the distance, a dark shape against the water. It looks small, almost harmless from here, but you know better. You've heard the briefings, the warnings, the stories of tunnels, caves and defences dug deep into the earth. They called it the Typhoon of Steel, and in a few minutes you'll understand why. You grip your rifle tighter, feeling the sweat on your palms, the tremor in your fingers. The engines of the landing craft roar as they swing against their chains, lowering closer to the waves. Men climb down rope ladders, packs swaying, boots slipping against the wet rope. One misstep and you're in the ocean, weighed down by gear that will drag you straight to the bottom. You watch carefully, your turn coming closer, the salt air sharp in your lungs. The noise grows louder, the shouts of crewmen mixing with the crash of waves and the metallic groan of chains. When your boots finally hit the wooden deck of the landing craft, the world feels smaller. Cramped walls, packed bodies, the smell of fuel and sweat pressing in from all sides. The ramp is still up, blocking your view, but you can hear the sea pounding against the sides, and above it, distant booms, naval guns firing, shells screaming overhead. The invasion has begun. You can't see the island anymore, but you don't need to. You'll be there soon enough. And once that ramp drops, there's no going back. The ramp hasn't dropped yet, but already your senses are overwhelmed. The landing craft rocks violently in the waves, slamming against the water hard enough that your teeth rattle. Every jolt sends men staggering into one another, helmets clanging, rifles smacking against shoulders. The engine fumes choke the cramped space, thick and bitter, burning your throat with each breath. Mixed with that is the raw stench of bodies pressed too close together, sweat already soaking through uniforms, fear seeping out in ways that smell as strong as oil. You catch it in the air, sharp and sour, a human odour that's impossible to mistake. It's the smell of adrenaline, of men too tense to sit still, too terrified to admit it out loud. You feel your stomach lurch with the motion of the sea, a sickening rise and fall that makes every swallow of coffee from earlier threaten to come back up. Around you, a few men lean over the side to vomit into the water, their heaves lost beneath the thunder of the engine. The smell doesn't disappear. It lingers, mixing with everything else, another layer in the stew of exhaust, sweat and damp gear. Your nostrils sting, but you can't escape it. There's no space here to breathe cleanly, no corner to retreat to. You simply inhale and accept that this is the air you'll live with until the ramp finally lowers. The closer you get, the louder everything becomes. Behind you, the battleships unleash their bombardment on the island. The deck of the craft shudders each time a shell streaks overhead, the sound so loud it vibrates in your bones. The sky flashes even in daylight, distant thunderclaps echoing as explosions roll across Okinawa's hills. You can't see the full destruction yet, but you can smell it drifting across the water. Burnt powder, scorched earth, and the acrid tang of smoke carried on the wind. It doesn't smell like victory. It smells like something ruined, broken, and waiting for you to step into it. A man next to you pulls at the collar of his uniform, sweat dripping down his neck, even though the morning air is cool. His eyes dart back and forth, unfocused, his jaw clenched tight enough that you hear his teeth grind. Another soldier mutters a steady stream of curses under his breath, like a chant he can't stop, words tumbling out in rhythm with the thumping of his foot on the deck. No one tells him to stop. No one dares break the thin barrier everyone is holding on to. In the air, fear is contagious. If one man cracks, others follow, and nobody wants to be the first to shatter. The officer at the front shouts orders over the roar, his voice hoarse, the words barely reaching the back of the craft. Helmets rattle as men adjust straps, tighten belts, check rifles one last time. You follow along, fingers trembling as you tug on gear you've already checked 3 times. The rifle feels heavier, the metal cold against your hands. You run your palm over the rough wood of the stock, more out of habit than need. There's comfort in the ritual, even if it changes nothing. The grenades on your belt clink softly as you shift, a sound that feels louder than it should in the cramped silence between orders. You glance at the faces around you. Some stare straight ahead, jaws locked, eyes wide and unblinking. Others close their eyes as if trying to be somewhere else, anywhere else, if only for a second. One man near the corner whispers to himself, his lips moving in prayer, though you can't hear the words over the engine. Another clutches a photograph, edges frayed from weeks of folding and unfolding, his thumb brushing over it again and again. You don't ask who it is. You don't need to. Everyone in this boat has something they're holding on to. Something far away. Something they might never see again. The stench of fear grows sharper as time stretches on. Men breathe faster, sweat heavier, every exhale filling the small space with more heat, more dampness, more human panic. It's not loud, it's not screaming. It's something quieter, heavier, like a weight pressing down on the entire boat. A collective silence made of pounding hearts and shallow breaths. You feel it in your chest, a pressure that has nothing to do with the straps of your pack. Your own breath sounds too loud in your ears, your pulse hammering against your throat. You shift your grip on your rifle again, not because it's slipping, but because you need to do something with your hands. The landing craft slams hard into a wave, spraying salt water over the sides. It soaks uniforms, rifles, and gear, leaving everything sticky and cold. The taste of salt hits your lips, and with it, the bitter tang of oil slicks floating on the surface. The water here is already stained, fuel spreading in rainbow sheens, the smell of gasoline thick enough to sting your eyes. Somewhere behind you, a man coughs violently, choking on the fumes, but no one turns to look. Everyone stares forward, toward the ramp, as though staring hard enough might prepare them for what's waiting beyond it. Above all of it is the distant sound of Okinawa itself. Explosions rumble, smoke rises, and the faint cries of men already ashore drift across the waves. You can't make out the words, just the raw sound of panic and command, the sharp crack of gunfire popping between the thunder of naval guns. The smell of cordite drifts closer now, mixing with the exhaust and sweat until your nose burns with every breath. It's a smell you'll never forget, one that burrows into your memory and refuses to leave. Years from now, a single whiff of diesel or gunpowder will bring it all back in an instant. But right now, there's no escape from it. The officer at the front grips the rail, his knuckles white. He shouts again, voice carried away by the wind, but you catch enough to know what's next. Get ready. Stay low. Keep moving. Don't stop. The words are simple, drilled into you during training, but they sound different here, carried on the stink of fear that fills the boat. You swallow hard, throat dry despite the sweat on your skin. The anticipation is worse than anything else. The waiting, the not knowing, the minutes stretched into hours. Every second feels like it might be the last before the ramp slams down and the world explodes. You glance once more at the faces beside you. Some meet your eyes, quick, sharp glances that say everything without words. Others avoid eye contact altogether, retreating into their own private terror. The smell of cigarettes clings to a few, the acrid smoke barely masking the stink of sweat. Someone behind you mutters again, voice shaking, words half swallowed. You catch only fragments, but it doesn't matter. Everyone is saying the same thing in their heads anyway. Please let me survive. Please let me make it home. Please. Not me. Not today. The landing craft jerks suddenly as it slows, the engine shifting gears. You feel the change instantly, the way the boat tilts forward, the sound of water crashing against its steel hull. The air grows colder, sharper, as if the island itself is breathing against you. The officer raises his hand, signalling for silence, though no one is speaking anymore. The ramp creaks, the chains clattering, and in that moment the smell of anticipation and fear is almost unbearable. It fills your lungs, thick and suffocating, a reminder that every man here is human, fragile, and terrified. You grip your rifle so tight your knuckles ache, heart hammering, waiting for the metal to drop and the nightmare to begin. The ramp slams down, and daylight floods the cramped space with a blinding glare. For a moment you can't see, only hear the deafening roar of engines, gunfire, and men shouting all around you. Then the sound of water rushing against steel hits your ears, and you realise the boat is grinding to a halt in the shallows. The officer waves you forward, and bodies surge as one, pushing toward the open mouth of the craft. You move because there's no other choice. Boots stomp, rifles clatter. Someone stumbles against you, and then the air is filled with a storm of noise that feels like it might crush your skull. You leap down into the surf, the weight of your gear dragging you instantly lower than you expected. Water surges up to your chest, ice cold despite the tropical sun overhead. Salt stings your lips, diesel fuel slicks across the surface, and for a terrifying second you think you might sink before your boots finally find purchase on the sandy bottom. Around you, men thrash through the waves, shouting to each other, packs weighing them down like anchors. A few slip completely under, rifles held desperately overhead, helmets vanishing in the churn before bobbing back up again. Every step forward feels like wading through concrete, your legs heavy, your breath ragged. Bullets snap overhead, their sound sharper than anything you've ever heard. They don't sound like in the movies. They crack and whip through the air. A flat, violent pop that makes your head duck instinctively. Machine guns chatter from somewhere ahead, the steady rhythm cutting through the chaos. Sand erupts in plumes where rounds strike, the beach pockmarked before you even set foot on it. You see a man only a few feet away jerk backwards suddenly, his helmet flying off as he collapses into the surf. Water splashes red, and someone behind you screams his name before another voice shouts to keep moving. You don't stop. You can't. You stumble forward, half running, half falling, the weight of your pack pulling at your shoulders like it wants to drag you under. The beach stretches wide and flat, a strip of pale sand already torn apart by shells. Smoke rises in columns from the bombardment, black and grey twisting together into the sky. The air reeks of burnt powder and salt, the tang of explosives sharp enough to make your eyes water. You gasp, your mouth dry despite the seawater splashing into your face. Your boots sink into the wet sand with each step, slowing you down, forcing you to yank free with every stride. Behind you, more landing craft slam into the surf, ramps crashing open as men pour out. The sea is filled with metal and noise, the horizon dotted with ships still firing into the island, their shells screaming overhead like banshees. Somewhere ahead, the ground erupts in a blast that knocks you flat. Sand rains down over you, grains sticking to your skin, burning where they touch the sweat on your face. Your ears ring, everything muffled, the world turned into a dull roar. You scramble back up, heart racing, throat raw, as you suck in smoke-laden air. Men around you are moving, crawling, stumbling, trying to reach the low dunes beyond the open sand. You force your legs forward again, rifle clutched tight, every muscle screaming with effort. The beach feels endless, each step slower than the last, every breath harder to draw. Voices shout all around you, orders lost in the cacophony. Keep moving! Get off the beach! Spread out! You hear them, but they feel far away, like echoes in a tunnel. All you can focus on is putting one foot in front of the other, dragging your body out of the water and into the open killing ground. The sand clings to your boots, heavy and wet, every movement a battle. Another explosion slams into the ground nearby, the concussion knocking you sideways. You hit the sand hard, mouth full of grit, lungs heaving. You spit, cough, and push yourself up again, your hands trembling, fingers coated in mud and blood that isn't yours. The smell is unbearable. Smoke, burning fuel, salt, and something else. Something metallic and sweet that you recognize instantly. The air is thick with it, heavy, cloying, sticking in your throat until you want to retch. You don't look too closely at the figures lying motionless in the surf, their bodies twisted, packs floating beside them. You can't look. If you stop to look, you won't keep moving. And if you don't keep moving, you'll be one of them. You reach a small rise of sand and throw yourself down behind it, chest heaving, ears still ringing. Men pile in beside you, faces streaked with sweat, smoke, and fear. Some shout to each other, trying to regroup, rifles shaking in their hands. Others simply collapse into the sand, gasping, their eyes wide and unblinking. You press yourself low, trying to make your body as small as possible. Your helmet digging into your forehead, your rifle clutched so tight your knuckles ache. Bullets whip overhead, spraying sand into the air, each impact a reminder of how thin your cover really is. The order comes again. Move forward. You lift your head just enough to see the dunes ahead, higher ground that might offer better shelter. Beyond them, the island rises in ridges and hills, green with vegetation but scarred by smoke. The thought of crossing the open stretch between here and there makes your stomach clench, but men are already going, crawling on their bellies, dragging themselves through the sand. You grit your teeth, push yourself forward, and join them, the grit scraping your skin, your gear snagging on every rock and root. The sand feels endless, your arms burning as you pull yourself along, your legs dragging behind like dead weight. Every sense is overloaded. The world is noise and heat, smoke and screams, the constant stench of cordite and salt water. Your skin stings from sand and sweat, your throat raw from breathing in smoke. The taste of metal lingers in your mouth, coppery and bitter, as if the very air is poisoned. You crawl past bodies half buried in sand, their gear still strapped to them, their helmets tilted at unnatural angles. You don't stop, you don't look. You keep your eyes forward, focusing only on the patch of ground ahead of you, the next handful of sand, the next inch towards safety. At last you reach the base of the dunes, pulling yourself into their shallow cover. Your chest heaves, lungs burning, heart pounding so hard you feel it in your temples. Around you, men gather, some firing back blindly toward the ridges where enemy fire rains down, others slumping against the sand, eyes glazed with shock. The officer shouts again, rallying the group, pushing everyone forward. There's no time to rest, no time to breathe. The beach is behind you, but the island is ahead, and every step deeper takes you further into the hell waiting beyond. The sand fades behind you as the ground changes beneath your boots. At first it feels like relief, leaving the flat, open killing ground of the beach. But the comfort doesn't last. The island greets you with mud, a thick, sucking mire that clings to every step. It isn't just dirt made wet by rain. It's a living substance, a mixture of soil, salt water, blood, and the constant drizzle that never seems to stop. Each footfall sinks deeper than you expect, your boots dragging as if the earth itself is trying to pull you under. You yank your leg free only for the other to sink again, each movement a battle of inches. Rain begins to fall heavier now, carried sideways by the wind, cold despite the tropical air. It slicks your helmet, runs down your face, stings your eyes. It soaks through the heavy wool of your uniform until it clings to your skin like wet cement. There's no way to stay dry. Every fold of fabric becomes a sponge, holding water against your body until you feel like you're carrying double the weight. Your rifle, carefully cleaned back on the ship, is now spattered with mud, its wooden stock slippery in your hands. You wipe it against your sleeve, but it does little good. The rain mixes with dirt, forming a paste that coats everything: gear, weapons, faces. The ground stinks. Not just of wet earth, but of something deeper, sour and putrid. Shell craters dot the landscape, filled with brown water that bubbles as if the island itself is boiling. You step around them when you can, but sometimes you have no choice except to wade through, the water climbing past your knees, thick and slimy. The smell is worse near the craters. It's not just rainwater, it's rot. Dead vegetation churned into the mud, bodies half buried beneath it, the remains of animals and men mixed together, until it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. Each breath tastes of decay. carried on the damp air until it settles in your lungs. You stumble as the ground shifts beneath you, your boot sinking deeper than expected. When you pull it free, there's a sound like suction, a grotesque slurp that makes your stomach twist. Your foot comes loose, but your boot nearly doesn't. The mud grips everything, boots, packs, even men. You see one soldier ahead lose his balance, falling face first into the muck. He thrashes, gear weighing him down, mud sucking at him like it wants to keep him. 2 others grab his arms, hauling him upright, his face coated in filth, coughing and spitting mud from his mouth. You keep moving, because if you stop too long, the same thing will happen to you. The rain doesn't let up. It runs into your eyes, trickling past the rim of your helmet until the world is a blur. Your hands are slick, your rifle heavy with water. The mud sucks at your legs, slowing you down until your thighs burn. Every step is a fight, every breath an effort. The air is heavy with humidity, thick enough that it feels like you're breathing through cloth. Your lungs ache, your skin itches from the constant damp, and the weight of your gear digs into your shoulders until you feel bruises forming under the straps. The jungle around you offers little comfort. Vines and thick brush tangle your path, forcing you to push through wet leaves that slap against your face. The ground beneath them is no drier, just hidden pools of mud waiting to swallow you whole. Mosquitoes swarm in the damp air, biting through your soaked uniform, leaving welts that itch even as you're too exhausted to scratch. Flies gather in clouds around anything that doesn't move, and here, there are too many things that don't move. You pass by shallow depressions in the mud, where bodies lie half covered, uniforms indistinguishable beneath the filth. Some are American, some are Japanese. Most are simply shapes, bloated and pale, sinking slowly into the island itself. The rain doesn't wash them away, it just makes the smell worse. Everywhere you go, the stench follows. It clings to you, soaking into your clothes, your skin, your hair. You try not to breathe too deeply, but there's no escape. The odour is inescapable, a constant reminder of where you are and what this island is turning into. It's not just a battlefield, it's a swamp of decay, a place where life and death mix into the mud beneath your feet. Your pack feels heavier by the hour. The straps dig into your shoulders, the weight pulling you down into the muck. Your socks are soaked through, your boots squelching with each step, blisters already forming on your heels. The constant wet rubs your skin raw, leaving patches that sting with every movement. You can feel the damp spreading through everything. Letters from home blurred with water. Cigarettes reduced to pulp. Rations turning soggy before you can eat them. There's no dryness here, no relief. Only the endless weight of rain and mud. The sound never stops. Rain patters against your helmet, slaps against leaves, splashes in puddles. The squelch of boots, the grunts of men pulling themselves through the muck. The clatter of gear shifting with every movement. And beneath it all, the distant rumble of artillery, sometimes close enough to shake the ground, sometimes far enough to sound like thunder. Each explosion adds more mud, more craters, more rock to the island, tearing it apart piece by piece until it feels less like land, and more like a graveyard turned inside out. At night, it's worse. The rain doesn't stop when the sun goes down. It just grows colder, the damp seeping deeper into your bones. You huddle in a foxhole dug into the muck, water pooling at the bottom no matter how much you scoop out. Your uniform clings to you like a second skin, clammy and cold. Sleep comes in fits, broken by the sound of rain, by the squirm of leeches wriggling up from the mud, by the constant itch of insects feeding on exposed skin. You shift to find comfort, but there is none. The mud is your bed, the rain your blanket, the smell of rot your constant companion. Food tastes of damp earth. Even when you manage to choke down a ration, it's been soaked, tainted with the smell of your hands, your gear, the island itself. Cigarettes barely light, the paper too wet to catch, and when they do, smoke tastes sour, heavy with moisture. Everything you put in your mouth carries the same undertone of mud and decay. Water from your canteen is warm, metallic, and never enough. You drink anyway, because your throat is raw from the damp air, but it doesn't ease the weight pressing against your chest. Your skin begins to change. Constant wetness softens it until it peels away in patches, leaving raw flesh beneath. Your feet swell, skin white and wrinkled from being submerged too long. Each step rubs the blisters deeper, the pain sharp enough to make you wince, but there's no stopping. The mud doesn't care about pain. It pulls at you with every step, dragging at your legs until they feel like lead. Men limp, stumble, collapse, only to be pulled back up by others. The island doesn't just fight you with bullets, it fights you with every drop of rain, every inch of mud, every stinking pool of rot. And always the smell. It never fades. It clings to your uniform, seeps into your skin, fills your lungs. Even when you close your eyes, you can taste it, feel it, breathe it. The rain might wash the blood from your hands, but it can't wash the island from you. The mud and the rot are part of you now, seeping deeper with every step, every breath, every night spent shivering in a hole filled with water. The war isn't just fought against the enemy, it's fought against the earth itself, an island determined to swallow you whole. The rain slackens, but the relief is brief. The sky itself feels alive now, humming with the threat you can't see until it's already too late. You hear it first, a low drone above the wind, distant at first but growing fast. Every man around you tilts his head upward at the same moment, eyes searching the grey ceiling of clouds. Then the shout comes, sharp and urgent, cutting through the noise of mud and artillery. Planes. You squint into the sky, the rain stinging your eyes, and finally you see them. Dark shapes breaking through the clouds, engines roaring as they dive. For a heartbeat, they look like any other aircraft, until you notice their flight path doesn't change. They don't pull up, don't veer away, don't behave like pilots planning to return. They scream downward in straight lines, wings trembling with speed, smoke trailing from engines pushed to their limits. And then you remember what the word meant back on the ship, when the officers explained it in steady voices. Kamikaze. The divine wind. Men turned into weapons, their bodies the payload. The first explosion shatters the air so violently you feel it in your chest. A column of fire rises from the beach, fragment of metal and sand raining down. Men throw themselves flat against the mud, hands over their helmets, teeth clenched tight. The ground shakes, and for a moment you can't hear anything but the ringing in your skull. Then the second one hits, closer this time, the blast wave punching through your ribs. A spray of dirt and water covers you, warm fragments pattering against your back. The sky is chaos now. Tracers streak upward from ships offshore, long orange lines carving arcs into the grey. Anti-aircraft guns thunder, their booms rolling over the island like an endless drumbeat. Shells burst above you in bright flashes, shrapnel scattering across the sky. You watch one plane shudder as its wing tears free, the pilot never slowing as the machine plummets in flames, smashing into the sea with a spray of water that rises higher than the ships themselves. Another makes it through, diving straight into the deck of a destroyer. The fireball that erupts lights up the horizon, black smoke curling upward like a fist. Even from shore, you feel the heat on your face. The smell of burning fuel mixes with the constant reek of mud and rot. It's sharper, more violent, carried on the wind in waves that make your stomach turn. You taste it when you breathe, oily and metallic, clinging to the back of your tongue. Somewhere inland, artillery keeps pounding, but the skies are louder. The drone of engines, the shriek of diving planes, the roar of explosions, the crack of machine gun fire. It's a storm made of steel and fire, and you're caught in the middle of it. You press yourself lower into the mud, but it offers no safety. You can feel the vibrations of each impact through the earth, rattling your bones. Your helmet rattles with every shockwave, your rifle slipping in your wet hands. Men around you curse, shout, fire blindly into the air, their voices high and frantic. Someone near you starts to laugh, a sharp, hysterical sound that cuts off only when another blast knocks him flat. No one checks if he's still breathing. There's no time. The kamikazes don't come alone. Each wave is followed by strafing runs, machine guns stitching the ground with deadly precision. You hear the ripping sound before you see the line of dirt kick up, racing across the field like a whip. You throw yourself flat, mud filling your mouth, your nose, your ears. The ground shakes as another line of bullets rips past, the air alive with the hiss of metal cutting through space. When you lift your head again, men who were crouched beside you moments ago lie still, their helmets rolling in the muck. The attacks don't stop when night falls. The skies stay alive with the drone of engines, the sudden flare of tracers, the distant thunder of impacts offshore. Sleep is impossible. You huddle in your foxhole, water rising around your boots, staring at the black sky as streaks of fire carve across it. Every new sound makes your stomach clench. The rising whine of an engine diving, the whistle of falling metal, the sudden crash of impact. The horizon glows with burning ships, their flames mirrored on the water, the smoke drifting inland to choke you where you crouch. You wonder about the pilots, men no older than you, climbing into cockpits with the full knowledge they'll never come back. You imagine their hands gripping the controls, their eyes fixed on the target, their hearts pounding no differently than yours. You don't admire them. You can't, but you can't stop picturing the moment they close their eyes and push the stick forward, turning themselves into fire. And you wonder if they feel fear, or if it's something beyond fear, a surrender you can't understand. The days blur together. The mud never dries, the rain never stops, and the skies never quiet. Each morning begins with the same drone overhead, the same scramble for cover, the same concussive blasts that rattle your teeth. You learn to tell the difference between the sounds. The deeper growl of a bomber, the higher whine of a fighter, the distinct, unwavering pitch of a kamikaze on its final dive. That sound is the worst. It doesn't waver, doesn't change. It just grows louder until it ends in fire. Your body grows used to flinching. Every muscle tenses at each new roar, your shoulders knotting so tight they ache even when you're still. Your ears never stop ringing. Your throat never clears of the smoke and oil that fill the air. Your uniform smells permanently of fuel now, soaked into the fabric until it's part of you. When you close your eyes, you don't see rest. You see streaks of fire falling from the sky, explosions frozen in time, the faces of men you knew one moment and lost the next. Even when the attacks miss, they don't miss. Every crash leaves craters, wreckage, debris. The island is littered with a twisted metal. Charred fragments of wings and fuselages scattered among the mud. The wrecks smoulder for hours, the acrid stench of burnt rubber and gasoline hanging over everything. You pass by them on your way inland, stepping over fragments of propellers, helmets, pieces of men who turn themselves into bombs. The sight never grows easier. You don't stop to stare. You keep moving because the sky doesn't give second chances. The officers tell you to dig deeper foxholes, to build overhead cover when you can, but the ground is mud, collapsing with each new rainfall, each tremor of artillery. You dig anyway, your hands blistered, your nails torn, your shovel heavy in the muck. You claw at the earth like a desperate animal, carving out a hole barely wide enough to crouch in. It fills with water within hours, rising around your legs until you sit knee-deep in filth. Still, you crouch there, hoping the mud will be enough to shield you from the fire falling from the sky. When the sirens wail, when the shout goes up, when the engines drone louder than your heartbeat, you press yourself into the mud, face down, breath held. The explosions rattle your skull, shake the ground, pound against your chest. You feel each one as much as you hear it, your body vibrating with the force. And when the silence returns, it isn't silence at all. It's coughing, shouting, the groan of ships still burning offshore, the crackle of fires fed by spilled fuel. You lift your head, spit mud from your mouth, and prepare for the next one, because you know it's coming. It always comes. The sky never feels empty again. Even in the rare moments when no planes are visible, you wait for them, ears straining, stomach knotted. The clouds become suspicious. The wind sounds too much like engines. The distant rumble of artillery blends with the drone of wings until you can't tell which is which. Your body never stops bracing. Your shoulders stay hunched, your muscles tight, your breath shallow. The war doesn't just surround you. It hangs above you, waiting to fall. You dig because there's no choice. The island offers no cover, no walls to hide behind, no safe ground that doesn't already carry the stench of death. So you claw at the earth with your entrenching tool, carving out a hole barely large enough to hold you. It isn't clean work. The soil is soaked with days of rain, heavy and black, sucking at the blade of your shovel with every stroke. Water seeps in as fast as you scoop it out, filling the bottom with a slick pool that rises no matter how hard you work. Still, you dig, because a hole is the only thing standing between you and the fire raining down from the sky. When it's done, you lower yourself inside. The walls close around you, damp and cold, pressing in until the space feels more like a grave than shelter. The floor is mud, slick beneath your boots, creeping up your ankles until you're standing in water that never drains. You squat low, shoulders hunched, rifle cradled across your lap. Overhead, you lay planks of wood, scavenged branches, scraps of metal, anything to shield yourself from shrapnel. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. The rain doesn't stop. It seeps through your cover, dripping steadily onto your helmet, your shoulders, your hands. It runs down the walls of your hole in rivulets, turning the mud into a sucking mire that clings to everything. The stench of wet earth fills your nose, sharp and sour, mixing with the rot of vegetation and the ever-present tang of death. Mosquitoes swarm above the water, biting any patch of exposed skin, their whining constant in your ears. Flies gather by the dozens, drawn to anything that doesn't move. Food, gear, bodies. You swat at them, but they never leave. You shift your weight, but there's no comfort here. The space is too small, your knees pressed against your chest, your back aching from the hunch. Every muscle cramps, but stretching isn't possible. The mud pulls at your boots, your socks soaked through, your feet swollen and white from constant dampness. The skin peels away in places, raw and red, each step outside your hole sending jolts of pain up your legs. The medics call it trench foot, but names don't make it easier. You rub your feet at night, change socks when you can, but nothing dries in this place. Everything is wet, everything is heavy, everything stinks. The foxhole becomes your world. You eat in it, crouched low, your rations soggy from the rain. You sleep in it, head resting against the mud wall, helmet slipping forward as your body jerks awake at each new sound. You piss into a canteen you no longer use, dump it outside, then slump back down. You defecate in the mud, ashamed but too exhausted to care, covering it with a thin layer of dirt that the rain soon washes away. The stench is constant, inescapable. You breathe it in until it coats your throat, until food tastes like filth, until even water carries the tang of your own waste. At night, you listen. The darkness is alive with sound. Rain pattering against the mud. The buzzing of insects. The distant crash of artillery, sometimes close enough to shake the ground, sometimes far enough to sound like thunder. You hear men whispering in nearby holes, their voices low, cautious, as if afraid the night itself might overhear. Sometimes you hear sobbing, muffled, broken, cut short when someone notices. More often, you hear silence, the heavy, suffocating quiet of men, too tired, too hollow to speak. Sleep comes in fragments. You doze for minutes at a time, waking when your head slips against the wall, when your legs cramp, when the rain grows heavier, when a shell lands close enough to spray mud into your hole. Dreams are no relief. They're short, jagged flashes of home, of warmth, of faces you haven't seen in months. They twist quickly into nightmares. Fire raining from the sky, mud closing over your head, bodies sinking into the earth around you. You wake gasping, sweat mixing with rain, breath sharp in the damp air. The foxhole feels less like safety and more like a trap. You're pinned here, crouched low, waiting for something you can't stop. Artillery doesn't care about your cover. A direct hit turns your hole into a coffin, collapsing the walls inward, burying you alive. Even near misses shower you with shrapnel, jagged fragments slicing through wood and mud, whistling past your ears. You press yourself lower, face against the slime, breath shallow, heart hammering. You wonder if the next one will be the one that buries you for good. You see it happen to others. Holes collapsing under bombardment, men swallowed by mud and fire. You hear their screams, muffled, frantic, then cut off. Sometimes comrades dig frantically, clawing at the wet earth with bare hands, pulling bodies out by the arms, faces coated in mud, eyes wide with shock. Sometimes they succeed. More often they don't. The rain fills the hole, the mud caves in, and the earth claims another soldier. You watch, helpless, knowing it could be you next. The enemy knows the holes are there. Mortars rain down at random, walking across the field with cruel precision. You hunch lower, covering your head, praying the fragments don't find you. Snipers wait for movement, scanning for the slightest shift above ground. You learn quickly not to raise your head, not to stretch, not to leave unless ordered. The foxhole is safety, but it's also prison. You sit in it for hours, days, weeks, your world reduced to 4 damp walls and a strip of grey sky overhead. Food arrives when it can. Sea rations, cans of meat and beans, hard biscuits that break your teeth. You choke them down, the taste dulled by the smell of mud and rot. Coffee, when you get it, tastes of rust and smoke, boiled in blackened tins. Cigarettes are damp, refusing to light, their tobacco swollen and bitter. You smoke anyway, the ritual steadier than the taste. The smoke curls upward, mixing with the steam of your breath in the cold rain. For a moment, it feels like normalcy, like something you can control. Then the shelling resumes, and the illusion shatters. The foxhole is never empty. It crawls with life. Worms squirm in the wet soil. Leeches cling to your ankles. Rats scurry across your legs at night, their teeth sharp as they search for scraps. They aren't afraid of you. They dart across your chest as you sleep, tug at the edges of your rations, gnaw at the corners of your pack. Sometimes they nibble at the bodies nearby, their squeaks cutting through the night until someone throws a rock or fires a shot to scatter them. But they always return. The mud belongs to them as much as it does to you. You begin to stink, and not just of mud. Your body festers in the damp, your skin raw, your clothes stiff with filth. You scratch at bites until they bleed, dig at rashes until they burn. Your nails break, your hands swell. Your face is coated in grime that never washes away. The rain rinses nothing clean. It just moves the dirt around, layering it into your skin until you feel less like a man and more like part of the island itself. The stench follows you everywhere, sour and thick, clinging even when you step outside the hole for a brief moment. Sometimes you share your foxhole. Another man squeezes in, shoulder pressed against yours. Both of you crouched low, breathing each other's stink. Conversation is brief, whispered, broken by silence. You don't talk about home. You don't talk about the future. You talk about mud, rations, the next bombardment, the last man you saw buried alive. You share cigarettes, pass a canteen, shift your weight to make room. You don't need words. The foxhole speaks for both of you. It says you're trapped, you're filthy, you're waiting for the next shell to decide whether you live or die. You learn to count time differently, not in hours or days, but in bombardments, in waves of rain, in the moments between shelling when silence feels like a gift. You measure time in the cigarettes you manage to smoke before they go out, in the number of rations left in your pack. In the letters you've read so many times, the ink has blurred. The foxhole becomes your clock, your prison, your coffin in waiting. And with each passing hour, the walls feel closer, the mud deeper, the weight heavier. When the order finally comes to move, you pull yourself out with effort. Your legs shake, your body aches, your uniform drips mud and water. You climb over the edge, boots sinking instantly into the mire, the air thick with the smell of rot. You glance back once at the hole that sheltered you, and realise it could just as easily have buried you. Then you move forward, because there's nowhere else to go. The first shells hit before dawn. You're half asleep, curled in the mud at the bottom of your hole, when the ground suddenly heaves beneath you. The concussion slams into your chest, rattles your teeth, shakes dirt from the walls down onto your helmet. You jolt upright, heart hammering, lungs gasping for air that isn't thick with dust. Before you can even blink, the next one comes, closer this time, a roar so loud it drowns every other sound. The shockwave punches you back down, your body pressed into the mud as if the earth itself is trying to swallow you whole. The barrage doesn't stop. It never stops. Shell after shell after shell, the air alive with shrieks as they whistle overhead, the sky flashing white with each impact. You lose track of direction, left, right, near, far. It all blurs together into a storm of noise and fire. Your ears ring so badly you can't hear your own breath. The ground bucks and shifts, mud spraying up into your face, coating your mouth until you taste grit and blood. You press yourself lower, teeth clenched, rifle clutched to your chest, as though holding it tighter might keep the shells from finding you. The walls of your foxhole tremble. Chunks of wet soil collapse inward, splattering against your back, burying your boots deeper. You claw at the dirt to keep the hole from caving in. Fingers raw, nails packed with mud. Every explosion feels closer, each one the one that's meant for you. You know there's no logic to it. The shells don't care who you are. They land where they land. But that doesn't stop your mind from screaming that the next one will be the one. The blast that erases everything you are in a single instant. When the barrage finally pauses, it isn't silence that follows. It's a ringing, high and sharp, that fills your skull and drowns out everything else. Your body still vibrates with aftershocks, every muscle tense, heart racing so fast it hurts. You blink, eyes stinging from smoke and dust, and realise your hands are shaking violently. You try to steady them, but they won't stop. You wipe mud from your face, but the tremor in your arms makes it smear instead. You suck in a breath, choke on the thick air, and wait for the next round. It doesn't take long. The shells return with a fury, faster, closer, louder. You lose track of time. Minutes stretch into hours, hours into days. The sun rises and sets, but you barely notice, your world reduced to the rhythm of explosions. The whistle overhead, the split-second pause, the violent crash that shakes your bones. Again and again until you stop flinching. You don't have the energy anymore. You simply crouch in the mud, body slack, each detonation rolling through you like another wave in an endless storm. The noise burrows into your skull, lives in your head. You hear it even when it isn't there, echoes that don't fade. Your ears never stop ringing, a constant shrill whine that turns every shout into a muffled blur. You miss orders, miss words from men beside you, nod without understanding, because you can't make out anything over the roar inside your head. Sleep is impossible. Even when the shells stop for an hour, your body jerks awake at the phantom sound of whistling overhead. You curl tighter into the mud, waiting for impacts that never come. Men crack under it. You see it happen. One crouches with his hands pressed tight to his ears, rocking back and forth, mouth wide but no sound coming out. Another laughs, high-pitched and broken, giggling with each explosion until his laughter turns to sobbing. One night, a soldier near you bolts from his foxhole, screaming, running across the mud with his arms flailing. He doesn't make it 10 yards before a shell lands on him, and then he's simply gone. No one speaks of it. No one even turns their head. Everyone just presses lower into the muck, because there's nothing else you can do. The smell grows worse with every barrage. The air is heavy with cordite, burnt powder thick enough to sting your nose and throat. It mixes with the ever-present stench of rot, with the smoke of burning fuel. with the sour stink of men who haven't washed in weeks. Your eyes water constantly, tears cutting tracks through the grime on your cheeks. You cough, lungs raw, throat coated in soot that no water can wash away. The barrage doesn't just pound your ears, it fills your lungs, coats your tongue, settles into your skin. The ground is unrecognisable now. What once was jungle is cratered moonscape, trees shredded into splinters, earth torn apart and rearranged. Craters overlap craters until the entire island feels like one endless scar. You climb out of your foxhole only to stumble immediately into another, filled with muddy water, sometimes with something worse floating inside. The barrages have reshaped everything, turning ridges into rubble, fields into pits, trails into mazes of broken earth. You don't recognise the land anymore. It's all just destruction. You learn to measure barrages differently, not by how long they last, but by what's left afterward. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's screams. Sometimes it's the groan of men pulling themselves from collapsed holes, coughing mud from their lungs. You help dig them out when you can, clawing at the wet soil, pulling at arms slick with grime. Sometimes they live. Sometimes they don't. When they don't, you cover them back over, because there's no time, no energy, no place to put them. The barrage makes the ground both grave and coffin. The madness doesn't come all at once. It seeps in slowly like the rain, like the mud. You catch yourself muttering, whispering nonsense under your breath. Words you don't even realise you're saying until someone glances at you sideways. You bite your tongue, force yourself to stop, but later you're doing it again. Counting shells. Counting seconds between whistles. Counting breaths. Anything to carve order into the chaos. Your voice sounds strange in your own ears, thin and strained, but it's better than silence. Silence is worse. Silence means the next barrage is waiting. You notice your body changing too. Your hands never stop trembling. Your eyelids twitch even when you try to hold them steady. Your stomach knots so tight you can't keep food down, rations turning to bile before you can swallow. Cigarettes shake in your fingers, ash dropping into the mud before you can bring them to your lips. You feel hollow, stretched thin, like a wire pulled too tight, ready to snap at the slightest touch. Every sound, every flash, every shift of earth sends a jolt through you. A reminder that you're living on the edge of shattering. The officers call it battle fatigue. You don't care what they call it. To you, it feels like your mind is slipping out of your control. Like the barrages aren't just outside, but inside you now. The explosions replay behind your eyes, over and over, even in rare quiet moments. You feel them in your chest, hear them in your skull, smell them in your breath. You can't escape them. They've moved in, set up camp, taken over everything you are. And still the shells fall. Day after day, night after night, the sound never ends. You stop asking when it will. You stop hoping for quiet. You stop believing in rest. The barrage has no beginning, no middle, no end. It is constant, eternal, a drumbeat that crushes thought, speech, memory. You crouch in the mud, shaking, muttering, coughing, waiting for the next one. And the next one always comes. The island looks quiet when you first glance at it. From a distance, the hills are green, the ridges roll like gentle waves, and the villages dot the lowlands with tiled roofs that look almost peaceful. But the closer you move inland, the clearer it becomes. The ground here isn't just land. It's a weapon, sharpened and waiting, ready to consume you as surely as any bullet. Okinawa doesn't welcome you. It resents you. Every step forward feels like the island itself is trying to kill you. The ground is uneven, churned up by weeks of shelling. You move across ridges that drop suddenly into gullies so steep you have to slide down on your back, gear catching on roots, mud smearing across your face. Climbing up the other side leaves your lungs burning, your thighs trembling, your boots slipping on wet clay that refuses to give you footing. Each hill hides another, each ridge another slope, the island folding in on itself like a maze designed to break you down. You never see far ahead. The next rise, the next patch of jungle, always blocks your view. Every step is blind, every turn uncertain, and the enemy knows it better than you ever will. The caves are the worst. They honeycomb the hillsides, dark mouths gaping wide, their depths invisible. You know what's inside: machine guns, artillery, soldiers waiting in silence. But from the outside they look like nothing, just holes in the rock, shadowed and quiet. And you advance past one and it erupts, fire and bullets spitting from the dark, men dropping beside you before you even know where the shots came from. The island itself feels alive, spitting death from its wounds, then falling silent again, as if mocking your ignorance. You can shell the caves for hours, pour fire into them until the earth glows red, but when you advance, the fire resumes, unchanged. The rock shelters the enemy, protects them, feeds them. It doesn't protect you. Every step inland brings more mud. Not the slick surface of the beach, but thick, sucking clay that pulls at your boots until your legs ache. You stumble, slip, crash into roots that claw at your shins. The rain turns paths into rivers, water rushing down slopes so fast it sweeps away gear, rifles, even men who lose their footing. You try to dig foxholes in this terrain, but the ground refuses to cooperate. Clay collapses inward, walls caving before you can make them deep enough. Water fills them instantly, leaving you crouched in a puddle that rises higher with each passing hour. The ground won't shelter you. It only buries you. The vegetation offers no comfort. Thick jungle closes in on every side, the air heavy with damp heat, the leaves dripping with rain that never stops. You push through tangled vines that snag your helmet, trip your legs, strip your rifle from your hands. Every branch seems sharpened, every thorn finds your skin. The undergrowth hides everything. Snakes coiled in the mud, insects that bite through fabric, pits dug by the enemy and covered with leaves. You step forward and the ground gives way, your leg plunging into a hole lined with sharpened bamboo, the stakes scraping skin, even if they don't pierce flesh. You pull yourself free, shaking, heart pounding, realizing how close you came to never walking again. The men who fall deeper don't get back up. Rotting bodies are part of the terrain now. They lie half buried in mud, tangled in roots, floating in flooded craters. Some are American, some Japanese, most beyond recognition. The rain bloats them, the heat cooks them, the insects swarm them until they're no longer men, but shapes in the earth. You step around them when you can, but sometimes the mud hides them, and your boot sinks into flesh that gives way with a softness that makes you gag. The stench rises constantly, thick and sweet, clinging to your clothes, your hands, your very breath. You taste it even when you're not near them. It follows you everywhere. The cliffs are another kind of nightmare. Sheer walls of coral rise above you, jagged and sharp, impossible to climb without ropes. The enemy hides in the cracks, in the ledges, in tunnels carved into the stone. They fire down at you, invisible, their bullets bouncing off rock, finding men who crouch in the open with nowhere to hide. You scramble across the base of the cliffs, rocks cutting into your hands, your boots slipping on slick stone. The ocean pounds against the base, spraying salt water into your face, and still the fire comes from above, relentless, unseeable. You fire back blindly, bullets sparking off coral, but the cliffs don't care. They hold their secrets, their killers, their traps. The terrain twists your sense of direction. Maps are useless, trails vanish under mudslides, landmarks crumble under bombardment. You move by instinct, by guesswork, by following the man ahead of you and praying he isn't as lost as you are. Sometimes you circle the same ridge for hours, climbing, sliding, slogging, only to realise you're no closer to your goal than when you started. The island folds back on itself, confusing, disorienting, endless. You stop trusting your own eyes. You stop trusting the ground beneath you. The weather makes it worse. One moment the rain is a downpour, hammering the ground into soup, drowning you in water that soaks every layer of your uniform. The next moment the sun breaks through, the heat turning the mud into steam that rises around you like breath from the earth itself. The humidity is unbearable, thick and suffocating, every inhale heavy with moisture that makes your lungs ache. Sweat pours down your back, soaks your collar, drips into your eyes. You can't tell if you're wetter from rain or from your own body. Either way, your clothes cling, your skin blisters, your strength drains with every step. The insects never leave you alone. Mosquitoes buzz constantly, biting through fabric, leaving welts that itch until they bleed. Flies swarm your face, your food, your open wounds. Ants find their way into your gear, your boots, your packs, biting until you're raw. Leeches latch onto your legs, fattening on your blood until you feel their slick bodies squirming under your socks. You burn them off with cigarettes, scrape them away with knives, but they return in greater numbers. The ground breeds them, feeds them, sends them at you in waves. You learn quickly that the terrain doesn't just slow you down, it kills. Men slip from ridges, breaking bones on rocks below. They drown in flooded gullies, their packs pulling them under before anyone can reach them. They collapse from exhaustion, heat stroke turning their faces purple, sweat pouring until their bodies seize and still. The island doesn't need bullets to take lives. It has mud, cliffs, caves, rain, insects. It has patience. And patience kills as surely as fire. You begin to see the island as an enemy in its own right. Each hill is a trap, each slope a gauntlet, each cave a mouth waiting to swallow you. You move differently because of it. Cautious, suspicious, every step a question. You prod the ground with your rifle before stepping. Check the bushes twice before passing. Scan every ridge for shadows. The enemy may be hiding in the caves, but the island hides everywhere. It doesn't fight fair. It doesn't rest. It doesn't care who you are. It just wants you buried in its mud, forgotten under its rain, consumed by its rot. And as you slog forward, thighs burning, boots sinking, lungs aching, you realise something you don't want to admit. The terrain is winning. It doesn't matter how many shells you fire, how many ridges you take, how many caves you clear. The island itself will still be here, waiting, unchanging, long after you're gone. And it will claim as many of you as it needs to, until it's satisfied. The The coral rises like jagged teeth from the earth, sharp and unyielding, a natural fortress carved by time long before you ever set foot on this island. It isn't smooth or gentle. It's rough, splintered, brittle in some places and knife-sharp in others, cutting your palms when you try to brace yourself, shredding your boots as you scramble for footing. The coral doesn't bend. It doesn't forgive. It slices you open and leaves the wound to fester in the damp heat. You feel every scrape burn, every cut swell, every gash itch until infection sets in. Your body carries the island's signature now, carved into your skin by stone. You find yourself wedged between these ridges, narrow channels of coral rising on either side, hemming you in like walls. They call them draws and ravines, but they don't feel like terrain features. They feel like traps. Once you're inside, there's no turning around, no flanking, no cover. Just a straight path forward, funneled by the coral, and the knowledge that the enemy knows exactly where you are. You hear them before you see them. Echoes bouncing off stone, the faint scrape of movement in the caves overhead, the sudden crack of rifles that sound closer than they are. Then the machine guns open up, and a ravine turns into a slaughterhouse. Bullets whip down the channel, sparking against coral, fragments flying like shrapnel. You dive flat, chest against the stone, but the walls don't shield you. They trap you, force you into the line of fire. You can't see where the shots are coming from. The sound echoes in every direction, ricocheting until you can't tell left from right. Men beside you shout, "Return fire blindly!" the cracks of their rifles swallowed by the rattle of enemy guns. One by one they fall, their bodies wedged awkwardly against the jagged walls, blood pooling in cracks that already stink of rot. The air is suffocating. Smoke from rifles and grenades hangs low, trapped between the coral walls, thick enough to sting your eyes and choke your lungs. The smell of cordite and blood mixes with the ever-present damp stench of decay, until every breath tastes metallic, acrid, foul. You gag, cough, force yourself to keep moving, but each step forward feels like a death sentence. The coral tears at your knees, your elbows, your hands as you crawl, your body leaving smears of blood on the stone. Behind you, the path is littered with gear, helmets, rifles abandoned when their owners couldn't carry them any farther. Ahead of you, the fire never stops. Grenades arc down into the channel, bouncing off the stone with sharp clinks before exploding in bursts of shrapnel. The walls amplify the blasts, the sound so loud it feels like your skull might split. You press yourself flat against the coral, fragments slicing into your back, your legs, your arms. Your ears ring, your vision swims, your body feels hollow. You force yourself upright again, blinking through smoke, stumbling forward because there's nowhere else to go. You can't retreat. The men behind you are pushing forward, the men ahead of you are falling, and the walls close you in like the jaws of a trap. The caves above are alive. Fire pours from them, rifles flashing in the darkness, machine guns rattling, mortars thumping. You lob grenades into their mouths, the explosions shaking the stone, sending dust and fragments raining down. For a moment the fire stops, and you think you've cleared them. Then the shots resume, steady as before, as if the caves themselves are spitting death. You realise there are tunnels inside, chambers connected far beyond what you can see, the enemy shifting unseen from one to another. You can't kill the caves. They're part of the island, endless, unyielding. Men scream for medics, their voices sharp and panicked, echoing off the stone. You turn your head and see one crouched over a wounded soldier, hands pressed to a gut wound that won't stop bleeding. The coral is slick with it, dark stains spreading in rivulets down the stone. The medic shouts for help, but the fire is too heavy. No one can move. You press your face against the rock, teeth clenched, praying the next burst of bullets doesn't find you. When you look again, both men are still, their bodies slumped together in the mud and blood. The sun bakes the coral during the day, the heat radiating from the stone until the air shimmers. Your uniform sticks to your body, drenched with sweat that has nowhere to go. The stone cuts the soles of your boots until they peel away, leaving your feet raw, blistered, bleeding. At night, the coral turns cold, damp air seeping into your bones, making every cut ache, every bruise throb. You huddle against the stone for shelter, but the jagged edges dig into your ribs, your hips, your back. There's no comfort here, no relief. Just stone pressing into flesh until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. The dead don't leave. They rot where they fall, wedged between coral outcroppings, their bodies swelling in the heat, their faces unrecognisable. You crawl past them, trying not to touch, but the walls are too narrow. Your sleeve brushes against a bloated arm. Your boot sinks into a chest that gives way. Your hand slips on a rib cage, slick with decay. The stench is unbearable, thick and sweet, filling your nose until you retch, bile burning your throat. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve, but the smell lingers, clinging to your skin, your clothes, your breath. Even when you stagger forward, even when you escape that ravine, it follows you. Sometimes you find yourself pinned, unable to move forward or back. The enemy fires from both ends, trapping you in the middle, bullets whipping from one direction, then the other. You crouch low, back pressed to the coral, praying they aim for someone else. The air fills with dust and smoke, the ground littered with fragments of stone and bone. You can't hear anything but the crack of rifles, the scream of ricochets, the desperate shouts of men caught in the same trap. You know you'll never forget the sound of bullets sparking off coral, the shrill whine as they ricochet, the sharp thud when they finally find flesh. The officers shout for you to push forward, to clear the caves, to keep moving. You obey because there's nothing else to do. You scramble up the jagged slopes, fingers cut open on sharp stone, rifle heavy in your hands. You lob grenades into the dark, fire into shadows, climb higher until your legs tremble with exhaustion. The enemy is always there, hidden, waiting. You clear one cave only to find 3 more above it, each one deeper, darker, more impossible. The coral isn't just terrain, it's fortress, labyrinth, trap. And you're trapped inside it, moving forward because retreat means death, standing still means death, and forward at least offers the illusion of choice. Hours stretch into days, days into weeks. The coral never ends. Each ravine looks the same, each cave hides the same fire, each slope cuts you open in new places. Your hands are a mess of blood and scabs. Your boots barely hold together. Your body aches in every joint. The enemy remains unseen. Invisible shadows inside the stone. Voices whispering through tunnels you can't reach. You feel hunted, not by men, but by the island itself. The coral walls pressing closer. The caves watching, waiting, ready to swallow you whole. You lie awake at night, curled against the jagged rock, listening to the rain drip through cracks, listening to the echoes of gunfire bouncing through tunnels. You dream of stone walls closing in, of hands reaching from the coral to drag you down, of caves swallowing you alive. You wake with your heart pounding, your breath ragged, the walls still there, the smell still there, the trap still real. There's no waking from this. The coral holds you tight, and it won't let go. Night doesn't bring rest here. It never has. When the sun goes down on Okinawa, the island doesn't grow quiet. It changes shape, it changes sound, it changes smell, but it doesn't stop. You crouch in your foxhole, soaked to the bone, the air damp and heavy, the mud rising higher with every hour of rain. Your body is beyond tired, eyelids drooping, muscles trembling with exhaustion, but you can't close your eyes. Not really, not here, because the dark is alive, and in it, the war breathes differently. The first thing you notice is the whispering. It's constant, coming from every direction, carried on the wet night air until you can't tell whether it's real or imagined. Some of it is your own men, low voices trading words across the holes, keeping each other awake, steadying nerves with quiet talk. But other whispers don't sound like English. They drift from the jungle, from the caves, from the ridges. The enemy moves at night, always. You hear the rustle of boots in mud, the scrape of gear against stone, the faint cough muffled by a hand. Sometimes it's close enough that you grip your rifle tighter, finger trembling on the trigger, eyes straining against the black. You never know if you're imagining it or if they're actually there. You never know until something happens. Every sound is amplified. A twig snaps and you jolt upright, heart hammering. Rain drips steadily from leaves, each drop loud as a footstep in the silence. Rats scurry through the muck, gnawing at discarded rations, their squeaks so sharp they might as well be whispers. Insects drone, frogs croak. The jungle never falls silent. You lie awake listening, your ears straining for the difference between nature and danger, between harmless noise and the approach of death. You can't tell. Not here, not now. The enemy uses the dark. They crawl close, so close you can smell them before you hear them. Sweat, tobacco, the faint reek of unwashed bodies. Sometimes they slip into your lines, knifing men in their holes before slipping away again. Other times they throw grenades, the dull thump of explosions tearing the night apart, screams following instantly. You duck lower, covering your head, praying it isn't your turn. When the silence falls again, you hear the whispers once more, as though nothing happened. Your own men whisper too, but it's different. It's desperate, hollow. They talk about rations, about home, about women, about things that don't exist here. Their voices are thin, shaking, sometimes breaking entirely. One man mutters prayers over and over, the same words on loop until you want to cover your ears, but you don't because you're too afraid of what you'll hear if you take them away. Another laughs quietly at nothing, a sound that doesn't belong in this place, eerie and cracked, as though he's already broken but his body hasn't caught up. You stare into the black, pretending you can't hear, because if you acknowledge it, you might start doing it yourself. Then come the screams. They never stop, not really. Sometimes they're distant, floating from the ridges where fighting never ends, men shouting orders, cries of pain carried on the wind. Other times they're close, too close, ripping through the dark so suddenly that you jolt upright, rifle raised, body shaking. A man hit by shrapnel in the next hole over, shrieking for his mother, his voice cracking into sobs as the medic scrambles to reach him. Another, wounded earlier in the day, fever rising, moaning in delirium until it becomes a raw, animal howl. You press your hands to your ears, but the sound goes through you anyway, rattling inside your chest, clawing at your nerves. The worst screams don't come from the wounded. They come from men who've lost themselves. You've seen it happen in daylight. The blank stares, the muttering, the sudden shaking. At night, it's worse. The barrage, the mud, the fear, the constant strain crack them open, and the dark finishes the job. A man in a nearby foxhole begins shrieking at nothing, firing his rifle wildly into the jungle, muzzle flashes strobing the night. Others shout at him to stop, but he doesn't hear, doesn't understand. It takes 2 men to wrestle the rifle from his hands, pin him down in the mud while he thrashes and wails, his voice ragged until it breaks into sobbing. You don't know what happens to him after. You don't ask. You just know the screams don't leave you, not even when the night ends. Sleep comes in fragments, seconds at a time. Your body jerks awake at each drip of water, each rustle of movement, each whisper carried on the breeze. When your eyes do close, the black isn't restful. It's filled with shapes. Faces you've seen in the mud, men torn apart by fire, shadows crawling from caves. You jolt awake, heart pounding, breath shallow, your hands clawing at the wet walls of your hole as though they're closing in. The night stretches forever, each minute another reminder that you're trapped here, blind, helpless, waiting for something to find you. Flare guns burst overhead, lighting the night in sudden washes of white. For a few seconds the world is revealed, jungle wet with rain, smoke hanging low, the outlines of men crouched in holes, rifles raised. Then the light fades and the dark returns, heavier than before. The sudden shift blinds you, disorients you, leaves your eyes aching as they adjust again. The enemy uses these moments. Shots crack from the darkness, picking off men revealed by the flare. You crouch lower, face pressed to the mud, the smell of earth and rot filling your nose until you gag. When the flare burns out, you wait for the dark to feel safe again. But it never does. Sometimes the night is filled with voices you don't understand. Japanese soldiers shouting from the ridges, their cries sharp and urgent, followed by bursts of gunfire. Other times it's quieter, just a single voice, drifting from the caves, calling out in broken English. Marine, Marine, come out. We see you. You freeze, breath held, listening. The words are mocking, slow, stretched out like a predator teasing prey. Someone fires a burst into the dark. The voice stops, and silence returns. You stare into the black, wondering if it was real, or if the island is playing tricks on your mind. The rain never stops. It patters against your helmet, trickles down your collar, soaks your gear until everything is heavy, everything stinks. The water rises in your hole, creeping up your boots, chilling your legs until you can't feel your feet. You bail it out with your helmet, over and over, but it always returns. You sit in it, shivering, teeth chattering despite the humidity, breath steaming in the damp air. The mud clings to your skin, your uniform, your rifle, sucking the warmth from your body until you feel hollow. You try to sleep anyway, crouched against the wall, head resting on your knees. But the whispers wake you. The screams wake you. The war doesn't end because the sun went down. The night drags on endlessly, time stretching, minutes feeling like hours. You lose track of when it started, of how long it's been. The dark feels permanent, eternal, as though daylight will never return. You catch yourself staring upward, eyes locked on the strip of sky above your hole, waiting for the first hint of dawn. But the sky remains black, the rain keeps falling, the whispers keep drifting, the screams keep tearing through the night. You realise there's no difference between day and night anymore. Only more hours to survive, more hours to endure, more hours to wait. And when the morning finally does come, when the light creeps back over the ridges and the jungle begins to glow grey, you don't feel relief. The day is just another version of the same nightmare. The whispers quiet for now, but the echoes remain in your head, the screams still lodged in your chest, the darkness clinging to your skin. You blink at the grey sky, your body trembling from exhaustion, and you realise you're not sure where the night ended and the day began. On Okinawa, it's all the same. Your body is a machine that runs on fumes now. It isn't sudden, like a bullet or an explosion. It's slower, quieter, crueler. It creeps in hour by hour, day by day, until you don't remember the last time you felt full. The last time you drank water that didn't taste like rust and mud. Hunger and thirst aren't just discomforts anymore. They're constants, gnawing at you as relentlessly as the mud, as unshakable as the fear. Meals come when they come, and sometimes they don't. The supply lines strain under the weight of this battle, and the island itself resists every attempt to feed you. The sea rations in your pack have been soaked through too many times. The labels peel, the cans rust, the biscuits crumble into damp powder before you can even bite them. You force them down anyway, chewing each mouthful like ash, swallowing against the sour lump in your throat. Canned meat tastes of tin, slick and greasy, coating your tongue with a film that lingers no matter how much water you drink. The beans are cold, mushy, heavy in your stomach. The biscuits shatter into grit that scrapes against your teeth. You hate every bite, but you scrape the can clean with your finger because you know you can't waste it. Water is worse. Your canteen never seems to hold enough, and when it does, the water tastes foul. Warm from being carried against your body, metallic from the container, tainted with whatever seeped into it when you dipped it from a barrel or a puddle. You drink anyway, because your throat is raw from smoke and dust, because your lips crack until they bleed, because every breath tastes of powder and rot and leaves you parched. The water slides down your throat but doesn't refresh you. It leaves a taste behind, sharp and bitter, a reminder that even relief here comes with a cost. Sometimes you drink too quickly, greedily, and the water sits in your stomach like lead, making you nauseous. You hunch over in the mud, coughing, spitting, your body rejecting the very thing it needs most. Other times you sip slowly, rationing each drop, swishing it in your mouth to soothe your cracked tongue, then swallowing reluctantly, knowing you don't have enough to waste. The thirst never fades, it just dulls for a moment, then returns stronger, nagging, insistent. Your mouth tastes of metal constantly, not just from the water, not just from the cans. It's in the air, in the mud, in your breath. Smoke and gunpowder leave a copper tang that coats your tongue, seeps into your teeth, lodges in your throat. You breathe it with every shot fired, every shell detonated, every flare that hisses overhead. The metallic taste is so constant that food doesn't taste like food anymore. Everything you eat is flavoured with powder, with rust, with blood. Blood is part of it too. You taste it when your lips crack, when your gums bleed from chewing too hard, when you bite down in fear and nick your tongue. Sometimes it isn't your own. You crouch in the mud beside a wounded man, his blood spraying in the air with each cough, droplets landing on your face, on your lips. You don't wipe it away fast enough. The coppery tang fills your mouth, bitter, salty, thick. You gag, spit, rub at your lips with your sleeve, but the taste doesn't fade. It lingers, another layer on top of the powder and the rust. Another reminder of where you are. The hunger gnaws deeper. Your stomach cramps, twisting on itself until you double over, clutching at it with muddy hands. The rations don't last long enough. You stretch them out, eat half a can now, half later, but it's never enough. You dream of food constantly. Bread that isn't hard as stone. Meat that isn't slick with grease. Coffee that doesn't taste like rust. Sometimes you think you can smell it. Fresh bread, roasted chicken, even the faint sweetness of fruit. And your mouth waters until you swallow bile. Then you realise it's your mind playing tricks, the damp air twisting with smoke to torture you further. You laugh bitterly at yourself, then stop, because laughter here feels wrong. When food doesn't come, you chew whatever you can. Stale biscuits gone soft with rain. Coffee ground straight from the tin. Even the leather strap of your gear, teeth grinding against it just to feel like you're biting into something. The mud gets into everything anyway. Your food, your water, your mouth while you sleep. You spit it out, but the grit lingers, crunching between your teeth until your gums bleed. You swallow without thinking, because your throat is too dry to waste even spit. The taste of metal clings stronger at night. You sit in your hole, tongue pressing against your teeth, mouth filling with saliva that tastes of iron. You think you can smell it on your own breath. A sour, rusty odour that mixes with the stench of your body, of your uniform, of the mud around you. You lick your lips constantly, hoping for relief, but all you find is more grit, more copper, more thirst. You light a cigarette, the smoke scratching your throat, but even that tastes wrong. Wet tobacco, harsh and sour, another layer of bitterness. You smoke anyway, because the ritual is steadier than the taste. The enemy knows you're starving. They fire shells at supply lines, sink ships offshore, target trucks before they can reach you. You feel it in your gut, the hollowness spreading. Men grow thin, cheeks hollow, eyes sunken, their movements slow, each step heavier than the last. They mutter about food more than home now. They describe meals in detail. Steaks, pies, cold beer, hot coffee, voices trembling as though the memory itself is painful. You don't join in. You can't. The hunger is too sharp, too cruel. Talking about it feels worse than silence. Some men steal rations from others. Packs are lighter when you check them. Tins missing, biscuits gone. You don't accuse anyone. You know you'd do the same if you were desperate enough. Hunger makes men cruel, makes them liars, makes them animals. You share when you can, because watching someone else starve beside you is its own kind of torture. But you can't share too much. You can't give away what you don't have. Survival is selfish, and you hate yourself for knowing it. The thirst makes men reckless. They drink from puddles, from craters filled with rainwater that stinks of rot, that bubbles with flies, that hides the swollen remains of men and animals alike. They scoop it into helmets, into cupped hands, gulp it down as though it might save them. Some vomit instantly. Some grow sick, fever rising until they can't stand. The medics warn against it, but the thirst is stronger than warnings. You watch them drink, your own throat burning, and you wonder if you'll be next. If one day you'll be too desperate, too parched, too weak to resist. Your body weakens slowly. You can feel it in your arms, trembling when you lift your rifle. In your legs, heavy and sluggish as you slog through the mud. In your chest, each breath a little shallower, each cough a little harsher. You don't recover. There's no rest, no nourishment, no real water. You push forward anyway, because the war doesn't stop for hunger. It doesn't pause for thirst. It doesn't care about the taste in your mouth. It just keeps moving, dragging you with it, one starving, thirsty step at a time. And through it all, the taste of metal never leaves. You swallow it in your food, in your water, in your breath. It coats your tongue, your teeth, the back of your throat. You taste it in your dreams, wake with it on your lips. Carry it with you into every hour of every day. Hunger twists your gut, thirst cracks your lips, but the taste of metal is what lingers. It marks you, owns you, reminds you that even your own body isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the island, to the war, to the endless grind of survival. Your body was already weak from hunger and thirst, already tired from mud and rain and sleepless nights. But now something new sets in. It creeps slowly like everything else on this island. At first it's just an itch. A small rash on your arm, red bumps spreading beneath the damp sleeve of your uniform. You scratch without thinking, nails dirty, skin raw, and soon it burns. The rain doesn't wash it away. The mud doesn't cool it. It spreads, climbing across your skin. A reminder that even your own flesh is turning against you. Then there's the cough. It starts with dust in your throat, smoke from the barrages, soot from burned out villages. But it doesn't fade. It settles deep, a rattle that shakes your chest with every breath. Each time you cough, your ribs ache, your stomach lurches. The sound comes from everyone around you too. Men bent double in their foxholes, hacking until they spit dark clots into the mud. The medics call it bronchitis, pneumonia, jungle lung. You don't need names. You just know it feels like drowning from the inside, your lungs filling while the rain drowns you from the outside. Infection lurks everywhere. Every cut from coral festers. Every blister from wet boots swells. Every scrape from crawling in the mud reddens and oozes. You try to keep wounds clean, but there's no clean here. The mud seeps in, the flies find them, the bandages stay damp until they rot. You peel one back after 2 days and nearly gag at the stink. Pus seeping from the edges, the skin around it hot and angry. You rewrap it anyway, because there's nothing else to do. You can't stop moving. You can't stop fighting. You carry the infection with you, deeper into the island. The dysentery comes next. Men crouch in the mud, shivering, their bodies shaking with cramps that double them over. The stench fills the air, sharp, sour, unmistakable. They can't stop it. They foul themselves in their holes, the filth soaking into their uniforms, the rain spreading it into the mud. You try to turn away to block the smell, but it's everywhere. The flies come instantly, swarming in thick clouds, landing on bare skin, on lips, on eyes. They crawl into mouths, into open sores, into the food you haven't finished yet. You swat until your arms ache, but they always return. The buzzing is constant, a drone in your ears that mixes with the shells and the whispers, a sound you'll never escape. The heat turns bodies into rot faster than you thought possible. Men fall in the mud, and by the next day they're swollen, their skin stretched, their faces unrecognisable. You pass them on the trails, their helmets tilted at odd angles, their hands stiff, their eyes bloated shut, Flies cover them completely, a moving carpet of black that lifts in a cloud when you step too close. The smell is overwhelming, sweet and cloying, thick enough to make you gag. You breathe through your mouth, but it doesn't help. The taste enters your throat, coats your tongue, lingers even after you've moved on. You see it in your own men too. A comrade sits slumped in his foxhole, shivering despite the heat, his skin pale and slick with sweat. His eyes glaze, his lips crack, his breath comes shallow. You hand him water, but he can't swallow it. He shakes his head, mutters nonsense, words that tumble out without meaning. The fever has him now. You sit beside him, helpless, watching as he fades inch by inch. By morning he's still, flies gathering already, the stench rising as though the island couldn't wait to claim him. You move on because you have to, but you can't forget the way his skin felt hot against your hand, the way his eyes rolled back before closing for good. Your own stomach twists often. The rations don't sit right, the water doesn't help, and the constant damp breeds sickness in your gut. You squat in the mud, shivering, your body expelling what little food you had left. The cramps leave you doubled over, sweating, gasping for air. You wipe yourself with whatever's at hand, rags, leaves, mud, because there's nothing else. The filth clings to you, mixes with the rot already in your clothes, and you sit back in your hole trembling, weaker than before. You don't talk about it. No one does. It's too common, too humiliating, too endless. The flies know no mercy. They descend in swarms so thick you can't see straight, landing in your ears, your nostrils, the corners of your eyes. You spit them out, swat them away, cover your face with your hands, but it's useless. They return in seconds, crawling across your skin, probing at every drop of sweat, every opened sore, every piece of food you try to lift to your mouth. You eat quickly, hunched over, waving them away with frantic hands, swallowing before they can land inside the can. Sometimes you hear the crunch as one slips between your teeth anyway. You gag, spit, but there's no undoing it. You just keep chewing. At night the flies don't leave. They gather on the dead, on the piles of waste, on the edges of your gear. You hear them buzzing even in your dreams, a constant droning that follows you into sleep and jerks you awake. You slap at your false instinctively, your hands dirty, your skin breaking out in new sores where you've rubbed too hard. The buzzing never ends. Even when the sky is quiet, when no shells fall, when no planes dive, the flies are there, always there. A living reminder that the island feeds on you slowly, piece by piece, day after day. You feel yourself rotting too. Your breath tastes foul. Your gums swell. Your teeth ache from chewing damp biscuits. Your skin stays damp, peeling away in strips where your socks never dry. The rash spreads across your arms, your back, your groin, itching until you dig at it with filthy nails, tearing skin, letting the infection deeper. Your sweat mixes with mud until you stink worse than the bodies you step around. You smell yourself, gag at your own odour, but there's nothing to be done. There are no showers, no clean clothes, no change of socks. Just mud, rain, and the stench of your own slow decay. The medics do what they can. They carry morphine, sulphur powder, bandages, but their supplies are always short. They can't stop the infections, can't cure the fevers, can't chase away the flies. They patch men up enough to keep them moving, then send them back into the muck. You line up for treatment, waiting in silence, flies buzzing around your head, the smell of pus and sweat thick in the air. When it's your turn, the medic sprinkles powder on your wound, slaps on a damp bandage, and waves you on. It doesn't feel like healing. It feels like stalling. Like delaying the inevitable rot that will take you just as it took the others. Disease doesn't kill as quickly as a bullet, but it's relentless. It drains you, hollows you, steals your strength until you stumble forward in a haze. Your vision blurs, your stomach cramps, your breath rattles. You keep moving anyway, because stopping isn't an option. But you know the truth. The war isn't just being fought against the enemy, it's inside you now, in your skin, in your gut, in your blood. The island doesn't just try to bury you with shells. It tries to eat you alive, slowly, patiently, until there's nothing left but bones for the flies to crawl over. And still you move, coughing, itching, swatting, gagging, tasting rot in every bite of food, tasting rust in every swallow of water, tasting your own decay on your tongue. You wonder how much of you is left that's still human, how much has already been claimed by the mud, by the disease, by the endless swarms. You don't know. You don't want to know. You just keep moving. Because if you stop, the island will finish what it started. The war isn't fought alone. Not here. Not in this mud-soaked island where every hour feels like a test of endurance. You live shoulder to shoulder with other men, breathing the same damp air, sharing the same rations, crouching together in holes that feel more like graves. At first, that closeness feels like strength. You laugh when you can, trade smokes, pass a canteen back and forth. You tell stories to fill the silence, stories about home, about food, about the girls you left behind. For a little while it feels like the weight is easier when carried together. But Okinawa doesn't care about brotherhood. The island has its own way of breaking you down, and when it breaks one of you, it cracks the others too. It starts small. A man beside you grows quieter each day, speaking less, staring more. His hands shake when he lights a cigarette, his eyes flicking constantly to the sky, the caves, the ridges. You try to talk to him, but his replies grow shorter, hollow. Then one night you wake to the sound of him sobbing softly, head buried in his hands, shoulders heaving with each ragged breath. You want to comfort him, but the words don't come. You sit there in silence, listening, realizing you feel the same way, but can't bring yourself to admit it. The pressure builds with every bombardment, every night filled with whispers and screams. Some men snap suddenly, shouting at shadows, firing wildly into the jungle until others pin them down. Others collapse quietly, their spirits hollowed out until they simply stop moving, stop speaking, stop caring. You watch a man ignore the call to advance, his body crouched in his foxhole, eyes locked on nothing. No shouting, no threats move him. He just stays there, rocking slightly, as though the world outside no longer exists. Someone else pulls him to his feet, drags him forward, but you know he's gone in some way that won't come back. The bond between you and the others changes. Where once you leaned on each other, now you guard yourself too. You pass rations, but you watch carefully to make sure they're returned. You share water, but only when you can afford to. You sit shoulder to shoulder in the muck, but sometimes you don't speak at all, because there's nothing left to say that hasn't already been said. The silences grow longer, the laughter fades, the war grinds it out of you. And yet, you still need them. You need the man next to you when the fire starts, when the shells fall, when the whispers creep in from the dark. You grip his arm when the ground shakes. He grips yours. and for a moment it steadies you both. You lock eyes when the order comes to move forward, and even though neither of you want to, you move because the other does. The bond doesn't vanish completely. It just changes phrase, turns brittle. It's less about friendship now and more about survival. If he keeps going, maybe you will too. But survival doesn't treat everyone equally. You see it when men fall. A bullet takes one down beside you, his body collapsing in the mud, blood spilling into the water pooled at your feet. You want to stop, to help, but the fire is too heavy. You keep moving, teeth clenched, guilt burning in your chest. Later, when the barrage ends, you crawl back to check, but he's gone. You tell yourself there was nothing you could have done. You know it's true. It doesn't make it easier. The losses pile up. Faces you saw yesterday are gone today, replaced by silence, by bodies left in shallow graves or not buried at all. The group you marched with, joked with, cursed with, shrinks day by day until you can't remember who's left. The men who remain carry the same hollow look, the same haunted eyes. You don't talk about the ones who are missing. You don't speak their names. To say them out loud feels dangerous, like admitting how close you are to joining them. Sometimes the cracks show in anger. A man snaps at another over rations, fists flying in the mud, curses shouted until someone pulls them apart. Another lashes out when someone complains too loudly, screaming until his voice breaks. You see tempers flare over nothing, boots stepping on gear, rifles knocking together, even just the wrong look at the wrong moment. The war coils tension inside each of you, tight as wire, and sometimes it snaps in the smallest ways. You tell yourself it's just stress, just exhaustion, but you know it's more than that. The spirit that once held you together is unravelling, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. The medics see it too. They patch wounds, treat fevers, but they can't mend spirits. They talk in low voices about battle fatigue, about exhaustion. You hear the words passed around, but they don't capture what you see. It isn't just fatigue. It's men hollowed out, stripped of will, broken in ways no bandage can fix. They still walk, still eat, still fire their rifles when ordered, but the spark is gone. They move like shadows, empty shells carrying weapons, waiting for the island to claim them. You think about home sometimes, about the men who will make it back and the ones who won't. You wonder how anyone could explain this to people who weren't here. How could you tell them about the smell of rot clinging to your skin, about the taste of metal that never leaves your mouth, about the screams that echo in your ears even in silence? How could you explain what it means to watch your brothers, men you trusted, men you leaned on, collapse in spirit before your eyes? You know the truth? You can't explain it, not fully. It's something only the island understands, something it teaches each of you one by one until you're all carrying the same invisible wound. And yet, even broken, even hollowed out, you still move forward together. When the order comes, you climb from the mud side by side. When the shells fall, you huddle close, sharing the same meagre cover. When the night fills with whispers, you whisper back, not about home, not about hope, but about surviving the next hour. It isn't friendship anymore. It isn't even brotherhood. It's something colder, sharper, forged in exhaustion and fear. A pact unspoken. We move together because we have no choice, because the island will swallow us faster if we stand alone. Still, you can feel it slipping. Every day wears it thinner. Every death tears another piece away. The bond that once felt unbreakable is fraying strand by strand, until all that's left is a rope barely holding onto the weight. You cling to it anyway, because it's the only thing between you and madness. But you know deep down that the island is winning. It doesn't just kill men, it breaks them. And it's breaking you too, piece by piece, along with the brothers you swore you'd never lose. You hear it before you see it. A strange mechanical hiss, heavy and pressurized, followed by the roar of liquid fire igniting. The first time, you don't understand what it is. You turn your head, rifle clutched in your hands, and then the world ahead of you bursts into flame. A jet of fire arcs out, a living torrent that clings to everything it touches. The jungle erupts in an instant, leaves curling black, branches snapping under the heat, the air itself shuddering from the sudden surge of energy. The flamethrower isn't just a weapon, it's a force, a wall of fire pushed forward by the man carrying it, and there's no mistaking its purpose. You realise quickly why it's used. The caves, the bunkers, the pillboxes carved into coral that bullets and grenades can't touch. You've fired at them for days, lobbed grenades until your arm aches, watched artillery pound them into rubble, but the fire inside never goes out. The enemy is still there, waiting in the dark, rifles braced, eyes unblinking. Nothing reaches them. Nothing except fire. The man with the tank strapped to his back moves forward slowly, his steps heavy, his body bent under the weight. You crouch low, watching him advance, the hose in his hands trembling as he squeezes the trigger. A stream of liquid fire spews forward, splattering against the mouth of a cave. The flames cling to the rock, flow inside, spill downward in sheets of orange and black. For a moment, silence follows. Then the cave comes alive with screams. The sound is unlike anything you've heard before. High, raw, animal, men shrieking as fire swallows them, as oxygen vanishes, as skin and cloth ignite. You press your face into the mud, teeth clench, trying not to listen, but you can't block it out. The cries echo, bouncing from the walls of the ravine, mixing with the roar of the flames, until you feel them vibrating in your chest. You don't see the enemy, not directly, but you know what's happening inside. You picture it too clearly. Bodies writhing, uniforms blazing, arms reaching for exits that are already fire. The sound grows louder, then cuts off abruptly. Silence again, but heavier now. Final. The smell follows almost instantly. Acrid, choking, thicker than anything you've endured yet. Burning fuel, burning foliage, burning flesh. It rolls over you in waves, clinging to your uniform, searing your nostrils, filling your lungs until you gag. It doesn't smell like smoke from a campfire, or even from buildings you've seen burn in villages. It's sweeter, heavier, sickening in a way that makes your stomach twist. You know what it is, without needing to be told. The smell of bodies burning. You'll never mistake it again. The fire dies down quickly, leaving behind blackened stone, smouldering brush, and silence. The cave that spat bullets at you for days is quiet now. Its defenders silenced not by bullets, but by fire that stripped them down to ash and bone. You move forward cautiously, rifle raised, eyes scanning the entrance. The heat radiates still, waves rolling off the charred ground, making the air shimmer. You can't bring yourself to step too close. You already know what waits inside. The others don't either, not at first. One man dares to look, flashlight shaking in his hands, and the expression on his face when he stumbles back tells you everything. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't have to. The use of fire becomes routine. Each time you approach a new cave, a new bunker, a new ridge crawling with unseen rifles, the flamethrower comes forward. The hiss, the roar, the stream of flame, the screams, the smell, the silence that follows. Again and again, until the island is scarred with blackened mouths of caves and the jungle is littered with charred remains. You lose track of how many. 10? 20? More? The numbers blur. The memories don't. You see the enemy sometimes as they try to escape, bursting from the cave mouths with flames licking at their bodies. They stumble into the open, arms flailing, skin already peeling, uniforms falling away in burning strips. Some fire their rifles even as they burn, blind, desperate, their bullets wild. Others collapse instantly, bodies smouldering, smoke rising from their mouths. The fire doesn't just kill them, it unmakes them, turning men into shapes you can't look at without flinching. The smell becomes part of everything. It mixes with the mud, with the rain, with the ever-present stench of rot. You carry it on your uniform, on your hands, in your hair. You try to scrub it away with water from your canteen, but the taste lingers on your tongue, metallic and sweet. At night, you curl in your hole and still smell it, thick and heavy, clinging to the damp air. You dream of it. You dream of fire rushing toward you. Dream of being trapped in a cave with no way out. Dream of your own skin peeling under the heat. You jolt awake gasping, your body slick with sweat, your nose still filled with the smell. You can't escape it. The men carrying the flamethrowers don't last long. The tanks on their backs are heavy, awkward, and deadly in their own right. A single bullet can ignite them, turning the man into a torch in seconds. You've seen it happen. The crack of a rifle, the sudden burst of flame, the scream as he collapses, his body consumed instantly. Others rush forward to pull the weapon from his back, to salvage the tank, but the damage is already done. The smell rises again, mingling with the rest, another layer to the island's cruelty. You don't envy them. You can't imagine carrying that weight, that risk, that responsibility, but you rely on them. Without fire, the cave's never empty. Without fire, the machine guns keep rattling, the rifles keep cracking, the mortars keep thumping. You hate the weapon, you hate the screams, you hate the smell, but you know it's the only thing that works. That knowledge eats at you, but you swallow it like everything else. There's no choice. There never is. Sometimes the fire spreads beyond the caves. The jungle catches, flames racing through branches and vines, smoke pouring upward in thick black columns. You crouch low, eyes stinging, lungs burning, as ash falls like snow. The heat is unbearable, sweat pouring from your body, uniform sticking to your skin. The flames roar louder than the artillery, louder than the planes, louder than anything else. They consume everything, trees, brush, bodies, even the ground itself until it glows red. When it passes, what's left is blackened earth, skeletal trees, the smell of ash layered with the sickly sweetness of burned flesh. The fire changes the way you see the island. The caves aren't just holes in the ground anymore. They're tombs waiting to be lit. The jungle isn't just cover. It's fuel waiting for a spark. The air isn't just heavy with rain. It's heavy with smoke, with the memory of screams, with a stench that never leaves. You move forward through a landscape scarred by fire, your boots crunching on charred ground, your rifle sticky with soot. Your nostrils roar from breathing in death. And as much as you hate it, you know it's only going to continue. Every ridge hides another cave. Every cave hides another squad of men who will not surrender. And each time, the only answer is fire. The hiss, the roar, the jet of a liquid flame, the screams that tear the night apart, the smell that settles into your skin. Again and again, until you forget how many you've burned, but never forget how each one felt. You try not to think about what it would be like to be on the other side of it, to crouch in the dark, hearing the hiss, seeing the glow, feeling the heat rush in. To realise the air is vanishing, that the fire is inescapable, that there's no way out. You push the thought away each time it comes, but it returns at night when you lie awake staring into the black sky. You imagine the fire rushing into your hole, consuming you before you can even scream. You shiver despite the heat, curl tighter against the mud, and remind yourself it wasn't you, not this time. But the island whispers differently. The smell clings too tightly. The memory cuts too sharp. You wonder if the fire has already marked you, if the screams will ever stop echoing in your head. You know the truth. They won't. Not here, not ever. You knew before you landed that civilians lived here. Officers mentioned it in clipped sentences, like a logistical problem to be solved. A dense population, families hidden in caves, villages scattered across the ridges. But nothing in their words prepared you for what it feels like to walk through a war where soldiers aren't the only ones dying. On Okinawa, the line between combatant and civilian blurs until you can't see it at all. The fog of war hangs thick, not just smoke and rain, but confusion, fear, and the faces of people who were never supposed to be part of this. The first time you see them, you almost don't believe it. A group stumbles out of a ravine as the smoke clears from a barrage. Women clutching children, an old man limping on a stick, their clothes ragged, their faces blank with shock. For a moment you think they're soldiers in disguise. Another trick, another ambush waiting to happen. Your rifle jerks up, finger tight on the trigger. Then you see the child's wide eyes, the way the woman holds him close, her lips moving in a whisper you can't understand. Not Japanese commands, not shouts of defiance. Just words meant to soothe, meant to comfort, spoken in a voice breaking under terror. You don't fire. Neither does anyone else. You just stare, your breath ragged, your heart hammering, while the civilians shuffle past. Their eyes never meet yours. They move like ghosts, stepping carefully over craters, slipping in the mud, disappearing back into the jungle. You want to reach out, to help, to offer water, food, something, but your officer's voice snaps like a whip. Keep moving. You obey, because hesitation here gets men killed. Still, the image burns into your mind. The child's eyes, the woman's whisper, the old man's limp. You know you'll see them again when you close your eyes. As the days drag on, you see more. Villages half buried in mud, their houses shredded by shells, roofs collapsed, walls splintered. You step through one, boots crunching on broken tile, the smell of smoke and rot rising around you. Inside one ruined hut, you find bodies huddled together, too small to be soldiers. The air is heavy with the sweetness of decay, flies buzzing in thick clouds, crawling across tiny faces you can't bear to look at. You step back quickly, stomach twisting, but the image is carved deep. You'll never forget the way their hands were clasped, even in death. Sometimes civilians hide in the caves, the same caves where soldiers fire from the shadows. You don't know who's inside until the flamethrower goes in, until the fire roars, until the screams rise and fall. Later, when it's safe enough to check, you see the truth. Not just uniforms charred black, but dresses. children's sandals, bones too small to belong to fighters. You tell yourself it wasn't your choice. You tell yourself you couldn't have known. You tell yourself it's war. But the smell lingers, heavier somehow, when it's not just the enemy who burned. You hear rumours from other units. Civilians forced by soldiers to fight, to carry ammunition, to dig trenches. Women with grenades hidden under their kimonos. Children used as shields. Old men firing rifles with shaking hands. You don't know which stories are true and which are inventions, twisted by fear and exhaustion. It doesn't matter. The result is the same. Every shadow could be a soldier. Every villager could be carrying a weapon. Every face could be a threat. The fog of war settles in deeper, until trust vanishes, until compassion feels like a weakness that could get you killed. And yet, the suffering is undeniable. You march past families huddled in the mud, their eyes hollow, their clothes soaked, their hands reaching out silently. Some whisper words you don't understand. Some just stare blankly, as if already half dead. You have no supplies to give them. Your own rations are running low. Your own canteen nearly empty. You move on, leaving them behind, their faces burning into your memory. At night, when the shells fall and the screams rise, you wonder if those families survived the day. You know the answer. You just don't say it out loud. The fog of war twists everything. Civilians caught between both sides, soldiers who look like villagers, villagers who die like soldiers. You see them running during barrages, caught in the open, shells tearing into them the same as they tear into your men. You find them crushed under rubble, buried in mudslides, drowned in flooded craters. Some take their own lives rather than face what waits in the caves. You find them at the bottom of cliffs, their bodies broken, families still clutching each other even in death. The war doesn't spare them. It doesn't even see them. They're just part of the island now, part of the endless count of bodies. The sound of their cries haunts you as much as the screams of your own men. Children wailing in the night, mothers calling names into the dark. Voices carried on the rain until they blur with everything else. You can't tell where they come from. Can't tell if they're real or echoes in your head. You press your hands to your ears, but the cries seep through anyway, as unavoidable as the shells, as constant as the mud. You tell yourself you're hardened, that you can block it out, that you can focus only on survival. But the faces return when you least expect them. A glimpse of a child's shoe in the mud, the sight of a doll half buried in a crater, the sound of laughter carried strangely on the wind, so out of place that your heart lurches before you realise it's just another trick of the island. The war isn't just breaking soldiers here, it's crushing everyone, grinding civilians and fighters alike into the same mud, the same rot, the same silence. And you're caught in the middle, a rifle in your hands, unsure anymore of what's right, what's necessary, what's unforgivable. The fog of war swallows it all, thick and choking, until you can't see the line between enemy and innocent, between survival and cruelty, between orders and conscience. You move forward anyway, because hesitation kills, because the war doesn't wait for clarity. But you know the truth. Long after the shells stop, long after the island is silent, you'll still see those faces. You'll still hear those cries. You'll still smell the stench of burned out caves where you'll never know for certain who was inside. You thought you'd seen the worst the island could show you. The mud, the caves, the fire, the rot. You thought nothing could shock you anymore. Then you reach the cliffs. The ground falls away suddenly, dropping into the sea in jagged walls of coral that plunge straight down. The view might almost be beautiful if it weren't for the war. The waves crash below, white foam against black stone, the horizon stretching endlessly blue. For a moment you think of home, of beaches and sunlight. But then you notice the movement along the edges. Families, civilians, men, women, children, gathering where the land ends. Their faces are hollow, their clothes ragged, their bodies swaying as though the sea itself is pulling them forwards. You don't understand at first. You think maybe they're fleeing, trying to escape the gunfire, searching for some hidden path down to safety. You raise a hand, shouting, calling out in a voice hoarse from smoke and hunger. The words are useless. They don't understand your language. They glance toward you, eyes wide, expressions unreadable. Some whisper to each other, hands clutching tighter. Then one steps forward, a woman clutching a child in her arms. She doesn't stop at the edge. She doesn't hesitate. She leaps. The air seems to freeze. For a moment, you don't believe it happened. You blink, trying to tell yourself your eyes lied, that you missaw. But then another follows, a man with both hands on his wife's shoulders, pushing her forward before stepping off himself. You rush forward, boots pounding the mud, shouting louder, waving your arms. Your voice breaks against the crash of waves. More civilians climb onto the rocks. More bodies fall. The sea swallows them, the sound of water smashing against stone drowned by the roaring in your ears. You've seen men killed by bullets, by fire, by shells. But this is different. There are no rifles raised, no grenades thrown, no planes screaming overhead. This is quiet. This is deliberate. The island's silence is broken only by the rush of the sea, and the cries of those waiting their turn. You freeze, helpless, rifle heavy in your hands, unable to move, unable to breathe. Your stomach twists until you feel sick, bile burning the back of your throat. You can't look away. You try to stop them. You stumble toward the edge, arms out, shouting every word you know. English and broken Japanese phrases picked up from scraps of training. You gesture wildly, pointing away from the cliff, waving your arms in desperate signals. Some look at you, eyes filled with terror so deep you can feel it in your chest. They don't step back. They clutch their children tighter, whisper words you can't hear, and jump. Later, you learn about the propaganda. The enemy told them what to expect if they surrendered. Torture, humiliation, worse than death. They were told you were monsters, not men, that you'd destroy their families, strip them of everything. You don't know if they believed it fully, or if despair just swallowed them whole. Maybe both. All you know is that when faced with choices, fire, starvation or surrender, they chose the sea. The bodies litter the rocks below, tossed by the waves, broken against the coral. Some float in the surf, limbs pale against the water, clothing billowing like shrouds. Others vanish beneath the waves, pulled out to sea, leaving only the memory of their fall. The cries linger long after the jumping stops, echoing up the cliffs. Voices calling out for gods, for mothers, for fathers, then silence. A silence heavier than any barrage, any bombardment, any scream you've heard before. You can't stop thinking about their faces. The way the woman clutched her child, holding him close until the end. The way the old man leaned on his stick, staring at the horizon before stepping forward. The way the children cried, voices shrill with fear, before being carried into the air by hands that refused to let them go. You close your eyes at night, and they return instantly. The splash of water, the silence afterward, the finality of it. Some of your men turn away, unable to watch. Others stare, faces pale, jaws clenched, eyes wide with horror. One curses under his breath, repeating it like a mantra. Another sinks to his knees, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. No one knows what to say. There's nothing to say. You just sit there, listening to the sea crash against the cliffs, breathing air that smells of salt and death, knowing you'll carry this sight longer than any battle. The cliffs become a place of silence. No one talks when you pass them again. No one looks too closely. The stench of the bodies below drifts upward with the wind, sweet and rotten, mixing with the sea spray until you gag. The gulls circle constantly, shrieking, diving to pick at what the waves return. At night, you think you can still hear the cries, the voices calling out, the screams cut short, the splash of bodies hitting water. You tell yourself it's the wind. You know it isn't. The war grinds on, shells still falling, caves still burning, mud still sucking at your boots. But something changed at the cliffs. You've seen death in every shape, but this was different. This wasn't soldiers killing soldiers. This wasn't the island claiming men in mud and fire. This was people choosing death rather than life under the shadow of war. And you were there, close enough to see their faces as they fell. You couldn't stop them. You didn't even understand until it was too late. You carry it with you as you move inland. Each scream folds into the chorus already in your head. The barrages, the whispers, the laughter, the sobs. But it stands apart, sharper, heavier. The silent horror clings to you like the smell of burning flesh, like the taste of metal in your mouth, like the mud that never washes away. The cliffs don't leave you. They never will. The order comes down the line, and it's the same as every other order you've received since you landed. Forward. Always forward. No matter the mud, no matter the caves, no matter the cliffs or the bodies scattered across the ground. Forward is the only direction, and ahead of you lies Shuri. The name alone weighs heavy. You've heard it whispered since the landing, the stronghold buried in the ridges, the fortress that seems to stretch across the entire island. You don't know exactly where it begins or ends. It doesn't matter. All you need to know is that you're being driven straight into it. The push begins in rain, because it always begins in rain. The sky opens without warning, soaking uniforms, clogging weapons, turning paths into rivers of filth. Your boots sink ankle deep with every step, thighs burning as you drag yourself forward. The weight of your gear pulls you down, straps cutting into your shoulders, the rifle slick in your hands. Around you, the line moves in fits. Men stumbling, slipping, cursing, then rising again because the officers shout and because the shells don't wait for you to find your footing. The ground itself feels hostile. Ridges rise, steep and sudden, jagged coral cutting your hands as you scramble upward, only to collapse into gullies filled with water and muck on the other side. You climb, you fall, you drag yourself forward, only to find another ridge waiting. Each one is mined, trapped, defended. Machine guns spit from hidden caves, mortars whistle overhead, bullets crack past your ears. You flatten yourself against the mud, firing upward blindly, your chest heaving, your face pressed into the stinking ground. You wait for the flamethrowers, for the artillery, for the fire to clear the way. Then you rise, step over the bodies, and climb again. The push doesn't stop at night. Darkness doesn't matter here. The artillery still pounds, the rain still falls, the officers still whisper orders. You move forward in the black, guided by flares that turn the landscape into flashes of white and shadow. Each burst blinds you, leaves you stumbling until the dark swallows you again. You hear men slip, fall, cry out, their voices swallowed by the storm of noise. You keep moving, your boots dragging, your body screaming for rest. There is no rest. The Shuri line doesn't sleep. You begin to realise what makes it different. Other battles felt like chaos, like storms that flared and faded. Shuri feels endless. A wall of resistance that never cracks, no matter how much fire you throw at it. Every ridge hides more caves. Every trench connects to another. Every gun you silence is replaced by 3 more. The enemy doesn't run, they don't break. They wait, patient, hidden, striking when you're weakest, then vanishing back into the earth. It feels less like you're advancing through a battlefield, and more like you're being swallowed by the island itself. Your body grows heavier each day. The mud cakes onto your uniform until it stiffens, your boots soaked until your feet swell and blister. Your stomach cramps with hunger. Your throat burns with thirst. Your skin festers with rashes and sores. Each step is agony, each breath ragged. You watch men collapse beside you, their bodies simply giving up. Medics drag them back if they can, but more often they're left where they fall, eyes glazed, mouths open to the rain. You step over them because you have to. You don't look back. The push eats men at an impossible pace. Entire squads vanish overnight, swallowed by barrages, by machine gun nests, by ambushes in caves. You wake one morning to find the man who shared your hole gone, his gear stacked neatly, his body taken in the night by a shell you didn't even hear. You keep moving, because stopping isn't an option. But the faces blur together, the names slip from your memory, until all you see are helmets bobbing in the mud ahead of you. All you hear are boots squelching in rhythm with your own. The officers speak of progress, of yards gained, of ridges taken, of the Shuri line bending under the weight of your advance. You don't feel progress. You feel exhaustion, hunger, sickness, fear. You feel mud sucking at your legs, smoke choking your lungs, shells rattling your teeth. You feel the ground tremble beneath you as artillery pounds endlessly, the sky flashing white, the air thick with dust. Progress means nothing when every step feels like it costs a life, when every inch of ground is soaked in blood. You notice the civilians less now. There are still some, huddled in caves, stumbling through villages, their eyes wide and hollow, but they fade into the background of fire and smoke. You don't have the energy to pity them. You don't have the strength to look too closely. You move forward, rifle heavy in your hands, eyes fixed on the ridge ahead. The line is all that matters. Shuri is all that matters. Survival is all that matters. The weather worsens as if the island itself is resisting. Rain turns into storms that lash the ridges, lightning flashing across the horizon, thunder mingling with the roar of artillery. The ground becomes rivers of mud, trenches collapsing, foxholes filling with water. You wade through waist-deep floods, your gear dragging you down, your rifle barely above the surface. The water stinks of rot, of oil, of blood washed from bodies you can't see beneath. You don't stop. You can't. The push never stops. The dead pile higher. Along the ridges, in the gullies, at the mouths of caves, bodies litter the ground, American and Japanese alike. Some are charred black, their limbs twisted. Others lie bloated in water, their uniforms stiff with filth. Flies swarm in clouds, the buzzing loud enough to drown out voices. You breathe through your mouth, gagging at the stench, but it doesn't help. The smell clings to you, seeps into your skin, your clothes, your hair. It's everywhere, always. You don't know how long you've been pushing. Days blur into each other, nights vanish without sleep. Time is measured only in barrages, in ridges taken, in bodies left behind. You can't remember the last hot meal, the last dry night, the last time you felt human. You're not even sure what victory here would look like. The line stretches endlessly ahead, and no matter how far you move, it feels like you're still at the beginning. But the orders never change. Forward, always forward, toward Shuri, toward the fortress buried in mud and stone, defended by men who will not yield. You move because you must, because the men beside you move, because the officers shout, because the shells fall behind you as hard as they fall ahead. You move because there's no other choice, because the island won't let you stop. And as you drag yourself forward, boots sinking deeper with every step, you realise something you've known all along. This isn't just a battle, it's a grind, a slow crushing of bodies and spirits, a ceaseless push that will only end when one side is ground down to nothing. And right now, the Shuri line isn't breaking. You are. It begins quietly. A tremor in your hands that doesn't stop when the shelling does. You tell yourself it's nothing, just fatigue, just the cold, just the endless damp seeping into your bones. But it doesn't fade. Even when the sky clears for an hour, even when you're sitting still, your fingers twitch against the rifle stock. Your palms tremble as though waiting for an impact that hasn't come yet. Then it moves upward. Your eyelids twitch. Your jaw clenches without warning. Your legs shake when you stand. You try to steady them, force them still, but the effort only makes it worse. The men beside you notice. Though no one says anything at first, they're shaking too in small ways, in ways they try to hide. Everyone is. You all live with the tremor now, a reminder that your bodies are no longer under your control. The noise doesn't help. You've grown used to barrages that last for hours, to machine guns that chatter without pause, to mortars that drop into foxholes with a sound like tearing the sky apart. But your mind hasn't adjusted. It jerks at every new blast, flinches at every crack, seizes at every whistle overhead. Sometimes you hit the ground before you realise what you're doing, face pressed into mud, heart hammering, lungs gasping. Sometimes you don't hear the sound at all, but still feel it. An echo inside your skull, a vibration in your chest, a memory so sharp it feels real. Sleep makes it worse. When you do drift off, the explosions follow you into dreams. You see flashes of light, hear screams cut short, feel the ground heave beneath you. You wake gasping, your body drenched in sweat despite the cold. Your hands claw at the mud, at your own chest, at the air itself, searching for something to hold on to. The others jolt awake with you, cursing under their breath, clutching rifles. No one asks what you saw. They already know. They've seen it too. Some men stop sleeping altogether. Their eyes are wide and red, their faces hollow, their movements jerky. They mutter constantly, whispering words that don't make sense, counting under their breath, shaking their heads as though trying to scatter thoughts. When they do collapse from exhaustion, they wake screaming, thrashing, sometimes striking out at the men beside them. The medics drag them away when they can, but more often they're left in their holes, their whispers blending with the sound of the rain. You watch one man freeze during a barrage. He crouches in his foxhole, hands clamped to his ears, eyes wide and unblinking. The shells fall closer, mud flying, men shouting, but he doesn't move. Not when fragments whistle past. Not when dirt rains down on his helmet. Not when someone shouts his name. He just rocks slowly, forward and back, lips moving soundlessly. You reach for him, shake his arm, but his body is stiff, locked in some place you can't reach. When the barrage ends, he's still rocking. You move on because you have to. But the image follows you, eyes wide, lips moving, body trapped in silence, even when the world explodes around him. Others break louder. A man snaps to his feet during the night, screaming into the dark, firing his rifle until the clip empties. He reloads with shaking hands, still shrieking, his voice raw, until others tackle him. He thrashes, teeth bared, eyes wild, his body twisting with a strength born from panic. It takes 3 men to hold him down. The medics come, jab him with a needle, and he finally goes limp, his chest heaving, his eyes still darting back and forth. You lie back in the mud, breath ragged, heart pounding, wondering how close you were to being in his place. Shell shock doesn't always announce itself so violently. Sometimes it's quiet. A man who no longer speaks at all, who stares at the horizon for hours without blinking. A man who refuses to eat, pushing away his rations until his body weakens. A man who jumps at every sound, who crouches in a hole even when no shells fall, who mutters apologies over and over though no one has accused him of anything. You see it creeping into everyone, even yourself. You wonder how long it will be before you can't tell the difference between sanity and madness anymore. Your own mind begins to slip in ways you don't want to admit. You hear voices when no one is speaking. Your mother calling your name, a friend laughing, a woman whispering in your ear. You turn, expecting to see them, but there's only mud, smoke, rain. You blink, shake your head, press your palms to your eyes. The voices fade, but only for a while. They return when you're weakest, when the shells fall hardest, when the night is quietest. You don't tell anyone. You don't want them to know how far gone you are. The tremors spread inside. Your stomach knots constantly, your breath shortens, your chest tightens as though you're being crushed from within. You feel your pulse racing, pounding in your ears, so strong it hurts. You tell yourself it's just fear, just the normal reaction to battle. But it doesn't stop when the fighting does. Even in silence, even when the rain is the only sound, your body stays coiled, ready for impacts that don't come. You can't relax. You can't breathe deeply. You can't remember what it felt like to be calm. Men begin to vanish not just from death, but from themselves. You see them walking in lines, rifles in their hands, but their eyes are empty. Their movements are mechanical, their steps dragging. They fire when ordered, reload when commanded, but there's no life behind it. Just shells of men moving forward because momentum carries them. You fear you're becoming one of them. You fear you already are. The medics try to pull some out of the line. They call it exhaustion, combat fatigue, breakdown. They whisper about sending men back, about rest camps, about treatment. But there aren't enough resources. The battle doesn't stop for broken minds. Most stay in the line, too far gone to fight effectively, but too necessary to leave behind. You move beside them, shoulder to shoulder, hoping they don't collapse completely when the next barrage comes. You think of home less now. The memories feel distant, fragile, unreal. When they do come, they're twisted by the war. You picture your kitchen table, but it's covered in mud. You picture your bed, but it's soaked with rain. You picture your family, but their faces blur, replaced by hollow eyes and mouths screaming silently. You shake your head, try to force the images back into something normal, but they slip away like everything else. You don't trust your own mind anymore. At night, when you lie in your hole, the whispers are louder. Sometimes you realise they're coming from your own mouth, muttered words you don't remember speaking. You stop yourself, bite your tongue until it bleeds, but later you hear it again. You're talking without meaning to, counting shells, reciting names, praying words you haven't thought about in years. The rain hides it, but you know the others here. You know they're doing the same. The war doesn't just kill men on Okinawa. It unravels them piece by piece, until there's nothing left but a body moving forward, a rifle clutched in hands that won't stop shaking. You feel it happening to you now, creeping in like the damp, slow and unstoppable. You wonder how much longer you can hold yourself together. You wonder if you'll know when you finally break, or if it will happen without warning. One moment of silence in your head before it all goes dark. And still, the push continues. Still, the shells fall. Still, the Shuri line waits ahead. Your mind cracks in small ways, but your body moves, because the war doesn't care if you're sane, if you're whole, if you're anything at all. It only cares that you move forward. And so you do, broken or not, because there's no other choice. The word filters down the line in broken pieces, the way news always does here. The enemy is retreating. The Shuri line is collapsing. The end is near. Men whisper it with voices that don't sound convinced, passing it along like a rumour instead of a fact. You want to believe it. You need to believe it. But after weeks of mud, fire, screams, and endless death, the idea that it could simply be ending feels unreal. Nothing about this battle has ended cleanly. Nothing about this island has given itself up without blood. The final weeks blur together in the same haze of exhaustion. You drag yourself across ridges that look no different than the ones behind you, through mud that still clings and caves that still spit fire. The enemy fights harder now, cornered and desperate, and every step forward feels like walking into a trap. You expect it. You've come to expect it. No part of you believes they'll simply give up and vanish. You've seen too many friends die for ground you thought was already won. You know Okinawa doesn't let go that easily. The shelling doesn't stop, not from your side or theirs. Artillery thunders day and night, the ground shuddering until your teeth ache and your chest feels hollow. The air is thick with dust and smoke, clouds rolling across the ridges like storms. You cough constantly, lungs raw, throat burning. You can't remember the last time you breathed air that wasn't filled with the stink of powder, rot, or smoke. You don't even hope for it anymore. It feels like the island itself doesn't contain clean air, just poison that seeps into you, hollowing you out the same way it hollows out the ground. The bodies are everywhere now, not just scattered, not just occasional, but constant. Every path, every gully, every slope is lined with them. American and Japanese, soldier and civilian, rotting together under the same rain. The flies are endless, buzzing in clouds that make it hard to see. They land on your face, crawl into your nose, drink from your eyes. You swipe at them constantly, your arms aching, but it never matters. The stench is worse than ever, sweet and sickly, heavy enough to choke. You gag as you move, swallowing bile, but you keep walking because the officers shout, because the shells still fall, because stopping isn't an option. Somewhere in the chaos, you stop thinking of it as fighting. There's no shape to it anymore, no clear line of advance, no obvious enemy, just scattered gunfire, sudden explosions, caves collapsing, men screaming. The battle has become attrition in its purest form, grinding forward until one side has nothing left to give. You don't think about tactics, about strategy, about victory. You think only about making it to the next ridge, about keeping your legs moving, about keeping your rifle in your hands. That's all there is. When word comes that Shuri itself has fallen, you almost don't react. The fortress, the line that seemed unbreakable, the name whispered for weeks, is in ruins now. The enemy slipped away in the night, retreating south, leaving behind bunkers filled with corpses, tunnels choked with rubble. You step through it slowly, boots crunching on shattered stone, eyes scanning the wreckage. It doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like walking through a graveyard. The silence is heavy, broken only by the buzzing of flies, the distant thud of shells still falling farther ahead. You glance at the men beside you and see the same hollow expression. You've taken Shuri, but nothing about you feels victorious. The push continues south, because even in these last weeks, the enemy refuses to stop. They fight from every ridge, every gully, every cave. They dig deeper, hide longer, ambush harder. You hear about suicide charges, about soldiers running into fire with grenades clutched to their chests, about men who would rather die than surrender. Each encounter is brief, violent, final. You kill them because you have to, but it feels different now. It feels less like fighting, and more like putting down something already doomed. You don't cheer when the cave goes silent. You don't celebrate when the gunfire stops. You just move forward, one more step toward an ending that still doesn't feel real. The civilians suffer worst in these final weeks. You see them starving, huddled in caves, their bodies thin, their eyes vacant. Some stumble into your lines, arms raised, desperate, their children clinging to their legs. Others hide until it's too late, until the shells fall or the flamethrowers roar. You stop trying to count how many. You stop trying to tell the difference between soldiers and civilians until the fighting is over and the smoke clears. By then, it's always too late. Your own body is barely holding on. You're thin, your uniform hangs loose, your face gaunt in the reflection of a puddle. Your feet are swollen, your skin covered in sores, your lungs raw from weeks of coughing. You feel decades older than you are, each movement stiff, each breath heavy. The men around you look the same, bent, broken, hollow. You catch a reflection in their eyes and don't recognise it. You don't look like a soldier anymore. You look like a survivor, and that's all you are. The rumours grow louder with each passing day. The end is close. The island is almost taken. The enemy is finished. You don't believe it until the guns finally go quiet. Not everywhere, not all at once, but enough. The silence spreads like a slow tide, creeping across the ridges, settling over the caves, hanging heavy in the humid air. You don't cheer, you don't shout. You just sit down in the mud, your rifle across your lap, and stare into the grey sky. This is victory, that's what they all call it. The island is yours now. The enemy is broken, scattered, dead. The way forward in the Pacific is open. Strategists will call it necessary, historians will call it decisive, leaders will call it triumph. But sitting there in the mud, surrounded by bodies, choking on the stench of death, you don't feel triumph. You feel empty. You feel hollow. You feel like something in you was burned out along the way, something you'll never get back. Men around you collapse, not from fire now, but from exhaustion. They fall asleep where they sit, their bodies slumped, their breaths ragged. Others wander aimlessly, eyes blank, hands twitching, muttering words you can't understand. A few laugh, the sound sharp, cracked, wrong. You don't laugh. You just sit, staring at the ground, your hands shaking even though the shells aren't falling anymore. The war might be over here, but it isn't over in you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Officers walk the lines, congratulating, praising, telling you what you've accomplished. You nod because you're supposed to. You don't listen. Their words feel distant, muffled, like they're meant for someone else. You don't feel like the man they're talking to. You don't feel like anyone at all. You feel like a shadow left behind by the battle, a body still moving, because it doesn't know what else to do. You wonder how you'll explain this to anyone at home. How do you tell them about weeks where every day was mud, screams, fire, and death? How do you describe victory that tastes like rot, that smells like burning flesh, that leaves you shaking even in silence? You know you can't. You know you won't. You'll carry it quietly the way the others will. The war will be remembered as triumph, but for you, it will always be something else. A hollow place carved into your chest. A silence that never feels like peace. The island lies broken around you. Villages burned, ridges cratered, bodies scattered. The ocean crashes against the cliffs, waves carrying away what the fire left behind. The rain keeps falling, steady, relentless, washing blood into the mud, burying everything under its weight. You sit in it, soaked, shivering, waiting for the order to move again. Because even in victory, you know the war isn't over. Not here, not in the Pacific, not inside you. And so you stand when they call, lift your rifle, shoulder your pack. You move forward again, because that's all you know how to do. The final weeks are behind you now. The island is yours. But triumph never came. Only survival. Only silence. Only the knowledge that nothing about you is the same as when you arrived. The battle ends, but it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like someone cut the sound out of the world all at once and left you sitting in the mud with your rifle across your knees, waiting for the next shell that never comes. The silence is worse than the noise. The ringing in your ears grows louder without the roar of artillery to drown it. The buzzing of flies sharper without the rattle of gunfire behind them. You glance at the men beside you, slumped in their holes, their eyes half shut, their faces grey. None of you cheer. None of you raise your helmets or shout. The island is quiet, but you aren't sure if that means it's really over. Eventually, the orders shift. Not forward anymore. Not toward another ridge or cave. Back. Back toward the beaches. Back toward the ships waiting offshore. The march feels unreal. You've only known forward for so long. The idea of retreat, even when it isn't running, feels wrong. You climb ridges you already climbed before. You trudge through gullies you've already crossed. You pass caves still stinking of fire and rot. The ground is scarred, blackened, cratered, but it's familiar now. Every rock, every mudslide, every patch of jungle holds a memory you don't want. You don't need to see the bodies. You already know where they fell. You already carry them with you. The closer you get to the shore, the stranger it feels. You hear the ocean before you see it, Waves crashing, steady and indifferent against the cliffs. The same sound that was there when you arrived. It hasn't changed, even though you have. The sea smells of salt, not rot, and the breeze carries something lighter, cleaner. For a moment, you close your eyes and imagine it's home, the wind from a different shore. But when you open them again, you see the wreckage, burned out landing craft, rusting metal, beaches scarred by weeks of bombardment. The sea is still blue, but it isn't the same. It never will be. Boarding the ship feels wrong. You climb the ramp slowly, boots heavy with mud, pack cutting into your shoulders, rifle clutched tight as though someone might still try to take it. The deck is crowded with men just like you. Thin, hollow, eyes staring at nothing. No one talks. No one laughs. You drop your gear where you're told, slump against the bulkhead, and feel the ship lurch beneath you as it pulls away. You watch the island shrink in the distance, its ridges fading into the mist, its cliffs vanishing into the horizon. Relief should wash over you, but it doesn't. Instead, your chest tightens. You aren't leaving Okinawa. You know you'll carry it, no matter how far the ship takes you. The days at sea blur. You sleep longer than you thought you could, your body collapsing after weeks of tension. But the rest doesn't bring peace. The dreams are worse now, sharper, clearer. You see fire rushing into caves, bodies tumbling from cliffs, faces screaming in the dark. You wake gasping, drenched in sweat, clutching your rifle even though you don't remember reaching for it. You blink at the steel walls of the ship, but they don't feel real. They don't feel safe. You close your eyes again, and the island is waiting. The food tastes different too. Hot meals, real bread, coffee that isn't lukewarm rust. You chew slowly, your stomach cramping with the unfamiliar weight. You thought you'd savour it, that you'd swallow each bite with gratitude, but instead you gag. The taste is wrong. Too clean, too rich, too far from the canned grease and metallic water you lived on. Your tongue waits for the taste of powder, of rust of blood. When it doesn't come, you push the tray away, suddenly sick. Other men do the same, their hands shaking, their eyes down. The cooks don't ask why. They already know. When the ship finally reaches port, the world feels unreal again. You step onto solid ground and hear voices not shouting orders, not screaming in pain, but laughing, chatting, casual. Civilians move past you with baskets of food, with clean clothes, with faces untouched by the war. Their eyes widen when they see you, the mud still clinging to your uniform, the dirt etched into your skin, the hollowness in your stare. Some nod, some thank you, some salute awkwardly. You nod back because you don't know what else to do. Their words don't reach you. They live in a different world now, one you can't step into. Home comes eventually. A train ride, a bus, a walk down streets that look familiar, but feel distant. People gather to greet you, to clap you on the shoulder, to shake your hand. They ask questions you can't answer. What was it like? Did you see much fighting? How does it feel to win? You smile faintly, your lips dry, and give the words they want. Tough. Hard, but worth it. Victory. You don't mention the cliffs. You don't mention the caves. You don't mention the smell of burning flesh that still clings to your clothes, no matter how many times they're washed. They wouldn't understand. You don't want them to. At night, the silence of your own bed feels like a trap. You wake in the dark, ears straining for the whistle of shells, the hiss of fire, the whispers drifting through the jungle. Your hands fumble for your rifle, but it isn't there. Your breath comes fast, your heart pounding, sweat soaking the sheets. You sit upright, staring into the black, waiting for the barrage to start. It never does. The quiet stretches, heavy and unfamiliar, until you almost wish for noise. At least noise made sense. At least noise meant you weren't alone. Your family notices the changes. The way you flinch at sudden sounds. The way you stare too long at nothing. The way your hands tremble when you hold a cup. They ask if you're all right. You nod, force a smile, tell them you're fine, but you know you're not. You know part of you is still on that island, crouched in the mud, ears ringing, eyes wide. You know part of you will never leave. The war moves on without you. Newspapers print headlines about victories, about surrender, about the end in sight. Politicians give speeches, crowds cheer, parades march. You watch from a distance, your face unreadable. You hear the word triumph again and again, but it tastes hollow. You don't think of Okinawa as triumph. You think of it as mud, as screams, as fire, as bodies on cliffs and flies buzzing in clouds. You think of it as the place where victory cost everything and gave nothing back. You live in two worlds now. One with clean streets, warm meals, soft beds. Another with rain that never stops, ground that never dries, nights filled with whispers and screams. You walk through the first, but the second walks with you, clinging to your skin, lodged in your chest, echoing in your head. You smile when expected, nod when spoken to, laugh when others laugh. But inside, you're still crouched in that hole, still waiting for the next barrage, still smelling the stench of burning flesh. Okinawa doesn't leave you. Not in the day, not in the night, not in the quiet moments when you think you've finally escaped. It's there, in the tremor of your hands, in the hollowness of your eyes, in the silence that feels heavier than noise. You came home, but part of you never did. Part of you is still on that island, trapped between coral and fire, between whispers and screams, between cliffs and waves. And you know you'll carry it for the rest of your life, as surely as you carried your rifle, as surely as you carried your pack, as surely as you carried the weight of survival. The war might end on paper, in speeches, in history books. But for you, it doesn't end. It lingers, heavy and endless. A shadow that stretches from Okinawa to every corner of your life. You returned home, but you never really left. That's where we'll leave it tonight. You've come back home, but not whole, not free of what that island carved into you. The story of Okinawa isn't just about strategy or victory. It's about what war does to men, to families, to civilians, to anyone caught in its teeth. And no matter how far you travel, no matter how many years pass, some battles never end. They stay with you, quiet, heavy, waiting in the dark. If you made it this far, I'm glad you spent this time here with me. Take a breath, unclench your jaw, let your shoulders relax. If your eyes are heavy, let them close now, and drift wherever your mind wants to go. If you're still awake, know that you're not alone. Somewhere someone else is listening with you in this same moment. Thanks for being here tonight. I'll see you again soon.